Savage, director of the film.
It's a huge honor for me and everyone else involved with this film. This is where they shot Pope Fisters 4. I mean, that movie's a masterpiece. Well, when we wrote up the script, we sent it over to the Vatican to get the Pope's approval and see if he had any notes, but he loved it just the way it was.
The highly anticipated pornographic film, which stars Ron Jeremy as the horny see himself, Pope Benedict the 69th, will reportedly contain graphic sex scenes filmed in the Sistine Chapel, St. Peter's Square, and the Pope-mobile, among various other notable sites within the Vatican.
Well, actually, I'm just watching a cut of this amazing scene we shot last night where Pope Benedict is gangbanging a bunch of nuns in his bed, and it was great because the Pope let us use his bedroom. Tomorrow we're shooting this scene where two nuns f*** each other on St. Peter's tomb using strap-on crucifixes. I think people are really going to like this movie.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Yes, it's time for the pin of shame.
The pin of shame.
Was it shame or was it?
I don't know. It was supposed to be a crown of shame.
Crown of shame. That's what.
But then we had the pin last week.
Right, because we couldn't actually get a crown. We thought one of our producers had a one of these Burger King crowns, like in his car trunk or something.
And despite the girth of most people around here, we have not been back to Burger King since to pick one up.
That's hilarious. Yes. I played a show right back when I was doing the heavy metal band days or whatever, and I've never really been a thin dude. Right, there are times in my life I was thinner than others or whatever, but like I've always kind of had a little bit of a beer belly, regardless as to whether or not I was drinking beer. So I play this show with a band out of, I think they're out of Montana. Don't quote me on that, but they're called A Balance of Power. They're still playing to this day. These guys are as old as I am, if not older. Maybe a couple of them are younger. I think they've changed drummers, whatever. So I'm playing this show with those guys and another band that I can't remember the name of. I'll think of it later. But the majority of the people in the bands that night were men of heft.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, above average weight.
Sure.
Right? And so we play this show. It didn't have any sort of trendy nickname or anything like that. But we did end up calling it, at the end of the show, we ended up calling it Girth Fest.
Nice.
So, yeah, we had that going for us, which was nice. We should tell people what they're listening to, you think?
Maybe.
Free
Talk Live?
Okay. What is Free Talk Live?
Live call-in radio broadcast where you can call in and talk about whatever you want, but we will take the position of liberty and freedom and on any topic you decide.
Okay, very good. Do you know the phone number?
It's 603.
Shame! Carry on.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We were just talking about the pin of shame.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've been here the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you just didn't see me.
Will you tell our listeners what
It's because I'm so small.
So
we know.
In order to...
I don't stand out.
No, you don't stand out at all. You just blend into any crowd that you're in ever, all of the time. There's never any like people who are like, "Whoa, who is that guy?" Right? That never happens.
Completely
to you,
unmemorable.
Yeah. What's the phone number?
603-283-6160.
Very good. Yeah, well done. In the studio tonight, it is myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me,
Peakless Mountaineer,
and Richie Rich.
We were lamenting of the pin of shame as the replacement for the crown of shame that never materialized.
I think the pin is right over there. I think I can see it.
Is it still in here?
Maybe.
Because it wasn't, I sort of gave it away even though it wasn't mine to give.
It's reflecting a pink aura from the
then I had to
desk
sort
over
of,
there.
What's the politically correct term for Indian giving?
I don't know. I still call it Indian giving.
I don't like calling it that because that doesn't make any sense.
I think that one's still politically correct. Because it's just going in, you're just saying, oh, you gave it to them the way that we gave stuff to the Indians.
Is that what it references, though? Or, in my mind, it always referenced how the Indians would treat you.
It's how the Indians want their land back.
And to me, it's wrong for either party to treat people in such a way where, here, man, I give this to you. Oh, wait, sorry, I'm taking it back. right?
Yeah, the
Like-
U.S. federal government is way more famous for that when it comes to like them and the Indians.
So it should be called government giving
Yeah, it's
or
true.
federal giving or something
Yeah.
more akin to that. Less, what do we call it? Less negative towards the Native
God, what an
Americans,
American
right?
giver, you know.
Oddly enough, we were just talking about Indian giving at work and also being gypped. Have you ever
Now
been
that-
gypped?
Yeah, gypped is
Now that
gypped is
some
currently
very
spelled with a
un-PC.
J, but it was originally with the GYP because it was a reference to the gypsies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, they really did earn that one. It's part of their whole culture that it doesn't count as defrauding if you don't do it to, human beings, which the only human beings are other Romani.
Well,
so
I mean, like part of it is negotiation, right?
And whether or
That's-
not you like dags.
Well, I'm just saying that like negotiation is always like, hey man, this thing costs $5,000, and then you're like, well, it's only worth like 500. Okay, I'll sell it to you for like 4,000, and the guy's like, well, I'll give you 1,500. Okay, I'll come down to 35. Yeah, right. It's this negotiation process.
So that's
part
haggling.
of haggling. Yes,
Yeah.
haggling. Also infamous from the gypsy culture is the word mark.
Okay.
And so they would have their bazaars, their marketplaces, or whatever.
I'm not
And
sure if that one's just gypsy culture though, because
I believe it
that one-
originated.
I mean, that
from
one goes
gypsy
like
culture.
Really? Because
Yeah.
that one goes all the way through like every festival, carnival, circus, any kind of traveling
what
entertainment
was the OG
thing.
traveling marketplace?
Yeah, I guess. Good point.
They were the gypsies, right? So anyway, for our listeners who don't know, the word mark comes from when people would go to these marketplaces. If somebody noticed that somebody had a wad of cash in their pocket, or they made like a big sale, right, to this particular person on their way out of their tent or table or whatever it is, they would put their hand in some chalk and pat them on the back. And so now they had a handprint of chalk on their back, and they would walk around the festival with this mark, if you will, on their back, so that all the other vendors knew, hey, this guy's got cash. This guy made a big sale or bought a big ticket item from me. He is a, quote, mark, unquote. That's where that comes from. And you're right, absolutely. Yes, that has permeated every type of bazaar, marketplace, flea market, carnival, any kind of that thing has been, oh, yeah, that's a mark. There's an easy mark. Oh, that's a hard mark, or whatever it is, right? There's different valuations for that mark. So it's up to you as a savvy spender or unsavvy, depending on, how you approach it. As to whether or not you're a mark, a hard mark, or an easy mark, right? What level of mark are you? Are you not a mark at all? Do you not shop? All that kind of thing. So,
Yep.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is so. Unfortunately, if you are a traveling whatever, and especially a traveling entertainment service, so you are incentivized to basically act as psychopathic or sociopathic as possible. So what has traditionally happened for all of human existence is that we punish each other for acting against our cultural norms.
That's why I don't think you should tip on vacation at restaurants.
Wow, a
'Cause you're not going
libertarian
back
that
there.
doesn't think you should tip.
You're not
I'm
going back
shocked.
there.
but no, specifically on vacation at restaurants. Like, I get your argument here because
Now it is true that tipping while you're on vacation is just an unmitigated act of altruism and kindness and upholding the social fabric, and you of course have no interest in any of that. So
None whatsoever.
So of course you'd just rather have your ducats.
But I see his point.
Honestly, I don't know why you ever tip.
like
I mean,
as
the
a,
probability that you will have the same server. I mean,
Well, when I was going to the same meetup group in Manchester repeatedly, we'd have the same server.
so you'd
So-
be like 10%.
so
So you
people-
wanna
I'm
stand out.
I'm actually a good tipper, but I like
Peakless-
making the argument.
sure.
I get the idea, right? So I'm a local guy. I frequently tip wherever I go locally, restaurants, bars, that kind of a thing. And like the people the places that I frequent, they know me and they know I tip well, and so I get superior service. That's how it works. You want superior service, don't be an a-hole and tip well, right?
But do you tip while you're on
hang on.
vacation?
Well, and this is the argument that he's making, right? Is that I do that, and I receive superior service in return for being a known quantity, right? But if I go on vacation, they don't know me.
You're right.
Right? I'm probably going to eat there one time.
Yeah.
Right? Whether or not I get superior service is a little arbitrary, right? Because I'm not a local. I'm not a repeat customer. How are they going to treat me, right? And, that's going to really determine whether or not I tip and how much, right? So, like, if I get superior service, yes, I am going to tip while I'm on vacation. But if I get inferior service, no, And if I get, like, the worst possible thing that could happen, right? It's only happened like twice in my life. I'm 51 years old, but I have left 2 pennies.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
This is the message, right? This isn't like, hey, I'm going to complain to your man. Like I guess it's passive aggressive, really, when you come to think about it. But like,
It's like you want them to know you thought about tipping and chose not
not
to.
only did I think about tipping, but I thought you deserved nothing. But instead of giving you nothing, I wanted to send you a message that you're horrible at your job, or at least you were to me and my table. And here's the message, right? That's the 2 cents. I did learn that from like my grandfather.
But you are incentivized, I mean, theoretically, to just not tip when you have even superior service.
When you're out on vacation.
When you're out on vacation.
When you're out on vacation.
Yeah, you don't have any incentive to tip well, even if
no,
you
that's
received.
not really true. So it looks that way.
But to me, if I receive superior service on vacation, I'm tipping.
As the
there's
individualist
2 things.
anarchist, my best interest.
So there's
above
2
all.
things. So some of us actually want to maintain like an identity as a decent human being. So that wouldn't appeal to you, Richie. You have no interest
who would
in that.
know? Who would know
You will.
besides the
You will. You know exactly what quality of human being you are, and you have no interest in maintaining a self-image that is as a person who gives good tips on good service.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just not interesting to you.
Joan Jett is my theme song.
Right. So that does what it does to your view of yourself and your view of the world. So it looks like there's no incentive whatsoever. But there's also the fact that now you have to live in the world that is a little bit crappier because of what you've done to it.
I mean, if you're talking about like karmically,
Yeah, I was
maybe.
going to say, you think there's a karmic aspect to tipping?
Well, so I do absolutely believe that there is a karmic aspect to it. I think that there are ways that the universe organizes in a sort of behind the scenes sort of way that will absolutely bite you for every mean thing you do in your life. But even if you don't believe that, it still changes nothing about the fact that you have put this into the world. Now, that will have an effect on the person that you are interacting with.
But on a percentage
they will
less
have
than
an
a Satoshi.
interaction with other people.
Yes.
So if you've made their day worse, they're going to make other people's day worse. If you've made their day better, they're going to make other people's day better. And if you've kept it on an even keel, then everything stays on an even keel. It ripples out, and you have to live here.
Yeah,
so, like right now, for
but
example,
here is
the
not
world
a different
is
place.
in an absolute hellfire at this point. Everyone hates everything. Everything's political. Nobody gets along.
That's
and
because
we're-
no one was tipping on vacation.
Honestly, yes. That
Way
is
to go,
one-
Richie Rich.
That is
See what you've started.
that is
How dare
one
you perpetuate
little
this thing?
It's one little thing on a list of a whole bunch of other things that are just the slow but gradual decay of civilization.
Ripples
And
don't go on forever, though. They eventually peter out, or they hit a stopping point.
Energy is neither created nor destroyed. Waves are a form of energy.
It is only transduced.
Right. Waves are a form of energy. They don't ever actually stop. They just go other places.
Yeah, but the ripple itself eventually softens as it goes. Right, waves get softer.
Oh, you're talking like dropping a
That's
rock
usually
in
the
a
example.
pond, and
Well,
like
so
yes,
here's the
the
example
ripples
people
do.
use when they're saying the ripple
The
effect.
ripples do.
Well, so
dissipate
here's the
over
thing.
time.
If they encounter a wave that is in the opposite direction, then both waves will cancel out.
Okay.
Now, that's how this works. That's how a lot of things work. So, yeah, if, you get amazing service, like they know that they went out of their way to help you,
Right.
you give them nothing.
Yep.
Or maybe even you just to be evil and get a little tickle. Because you might be interested in getting a little tickle
I love
more
getting
than
tickled.
just 2 little pennies. So you leave 2 pennies. Just to, make the world a worse place for fun. A lot of people do that. Now, if that happens and another one of those things happen, then what happens with a wave, if you have it in the same frequency, at like in sync with itself, then you get a twice as high of a wave. It amplifies the troughs and the
Okay,
peaks.
so just
So
as
if,
a
on the other
realistic
hand, someone-
example, right? If I'm on vacation, I get superior service, and one of the things that I evaluate superior service on is like, did they get my order right? Were they timely? Did they check up on
How many
me?
times did
That
they
kind of thing.
refill my water?
But that's not necessary. But like, I also evaluate attitude, personality. Did they make me feel comfortable? If something went wrong, did they come out and like, they were like, hey, something went wrong, but your side order will be right out, right? That kind of a thing, right? Were they on top of it is really what I'm evaluating,
Right.
And so if all of those things occur and I'm happy with the service that I got, I'm more than happy. I'm like, wow, this server's awesome, right? I will tip as much as 40%, right? Like I will go out of my way to make sure that person knows that they did a kick-ass job.
And that is putting that idea out into the world. Now,
Right.
you are
But
actively
at the same
rewarding
time,
good
I have
human
already
behavior.
admitted that I have left 2 cents on a couple of occasions,
Right.
right?
So
So,
now-
like, I will be extreme on both ends of that spectrum,
As you should.
depending on the service that I've received. How does that relate to karma?
Okay, so how does that relate to karma?
Yeah.
Oh, well, in your case, you are putting that giving and like basically you're making the world make more sense. When you make the world make more sense, that comes back to you. You come back to a world that, as you are rewarding it for good behavior, it's rewarding you for good behavior. Now, if you stop rewarding good behavior, then you're introducing more chaos to the system.
Do I get good karma for leaving 2 cents for the crappiest of service?
I actually think you do. I really do think you do, because you are, in that case, punishing bad behavior.
It's not intended to punish, right? Like punishment would be $0 on the tip.
Which is basically what you did.
In my mind. This is above and beyond that. This is
Right.
Hey,
in a different direction.
This is not just, hey, I left
Now-
and I forgot to tip.
No, it
this
is-
I am actively letting you know this was unacceptable behavior. You will
Okay.
not profit in any noticeable way, but you will be aware that I was able to tip you and chose not to.
Any form of tipping is an opinion, though, right? So it's not a fact, right? So like the same waiter, waitress, whatever, server, whomever might, service another table just as well or better than they serviced mine, and that particular table might not tip, or they might tip less, or whatever, right? So as a server, how do you balance out the karma to balance out, your paycheck, if you will?
Well, and that's it's a numbers game, right? So yeah, you've got someone like you who, on extraordinary service, will tip very well. Now, there's plenty of people who, even on extraordinary service, they will just tip their regular amount. So it's a numbers game. Now, if they are continuing to be rewarded for above and beyond service, they will continue to provide above and beyond service. And weirdly enough, the fact that it's at random means that it will solidify in their patterns more completely for a longer period of time than a non-random benefit.
So
like
because
this is
of
the stuff
the-
they find out with like rats and like rewarding them for certain behaviors, is that it lasts longer when the reward is random.
So because of the availability of extremes, right? The availability of tipping nothing or 2 cents versus tipping, half the bill, right? There used to be a movement online called tip half the bill or whatever, right? That kind of thing. It was encouraging people to tip like half.
Probably started by
half
servers.
of the bill, I'm sure, right? But because of the availability of the extremes in both circumstances, that it averages out, because you're not going to just wait on 2 tables in a night. You're going to wait on 100 or whatever it is, right? Depending on how busy the restaurant is that you're working at or whatever.
So I've got another question for Peakless, because when we started this conversation, you said, I am shocked a libertarian that doesn't tip.
Yeah, that was sarcasm.
Okay, I get it, but have you experienced that amongst other libertarians then.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it is a
Can you
very unfortunate thing that I've seen all over the place in New Hampshire.
Wait.
That it is largely believed that, like, no, why should I have to do that just because it's socially normal? I'm not going to do a thing because it's socially normal, and that's costing me money to be socially normal. And
it's those Aspie libertarians.
Okay.
I'm of the opinion that people who are of that opinion have never been a server.
Yeah, that's very frequently the case. They're like, you should have picked a different profession.
Which, there's some argument there, right? Like, if you become a server and you suck at it, you're not going to make much money, right? If you don't figure out real quick how to provide, good service and
weirdly
all that kind
enough,
of thing.
that is okay, like you were doing with the 2 pennies, right?
Yeah.
So if someone is doing abominable service, they will very swiftly not be paid enough to keep doing that. Like, if and only if enough people are still tipping. But if enough
but if
people,
it's culturally normal to tip no matter what, then you're rewarding abominable service, and they will continue onward.
yeah, that's that is actually
the whole-
part of the degradation of civilization.
They
is
shouldn't
not,
call it tipping, in my opinion. They should call it commission.
Okay.
Because that is what it is. Like, there's
alright. No,
little
that's-
difference. There's very little difference between what somebody who serves well earns on top of their, we'll call it, base wage.
So I've worked back at the house,
and the
with
very little
commission.
difference between that and like somebody who works at like a furniture store. They furnish these salespeople like a small minimum monthly payment, but it isn't unless they sell a bunch of furniture that they get the real paycheck.
Yeah, I've worked back of the house on commission or partial commission.
Yeah.
So back of the house, we got a percentage. Restaurant.
Yeah, me too. I worked bus. I worked dishwash. And like at the end of the night, I got some cash.
But it wasn't from the servers. This was based on the sales of what was sold in the restaurant. Back of the house split a commission.
Right.
And front of the house, they didn't earn a commission. They were tipped, which was whatever the customers decided to provide.
I think there's two different things here, because when I did bus, I was tipped by the wait staff.
Right. I was not.
And so, like, basically, whether or not I cleared if a table got up and left, if I was on top of it, cleared the table right away, wiped it down, set it new, got all crap out of the way so a new table could be set so they could make more, right? The numbers game.
That's
right?
cultural within restaurants.
So I would get tipped more as a busser for kicking ass at bussing the tables for the wait staff. And it was some, if there were, 15 people on the wait staff that night, I would get 2% of each person's tips or something like that.
But that was from the server staff.
Correct. Yes, not from the sales.
Mine was sales from management.
But I would
servers
also
kept their
get,
tips.
for whatever reason, because there was a bar in this restaurant, I would also get some weird percentage, like 0.05, a 0.5% or something of the bar sales, not the bar tips.
Yeah, okay.
So the bar tips were separate, but somehow the busboy would get a percentage of the bar sales.
That would be commission, and the other thing would be tips.
Okay, all right.
As if I were making a distinction.
Okay. Now, as a worker, as far as putting in the effort, I found no difference between doing an in-person sales job like selling furniture, for example, versus doing bus work or waiting on tables. There's like the amount of effort you have to put in to get the money reward, to earn the amount that you need to keep yourself alive was no different in either of those positions. So I equate them because the effort was about the same. 603-283-6160. Still to come tonight, The Kill Switch. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. convictions. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, the leaders of the US and China held their first face-to-face meeting in a year. Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping agreed to resume military-to-military communications and made joint commitments on fentanyl and climate change. They met on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Cooperation Summit in San Francisco, from where Ira Spitzer sent this report.
U.S. President Biden called the talks with China's president productive and praised the agreement to resume military-to-military communications, as well as a commitment from China to help crack down on Chinese firms involved in producing the precursors to the powerful synthetic opioid fentanyl. The two leaders also discussed areas of disagreement, including Taiwan, where Biden said the U.S. will adhere to the One China policy, but that he expects Beijing not to interfere in Taiwan's upcoming elections.
This week, the US averted a government shutdown. It ended with President Joe Biden's signature on the stopgap spending bill less than a day before the Friday midnight deadline, and will fund 4 federal agencies until January the 19th and the remaining until February the 2nd, at which point new funding will be needed to be agreed on to again prevent a government shutdown. This week, Israeli soldiers entered Gaza's main hospital, Al-Shifa, to follow up on claims, backed by the White House, that Hamas had a headquarters under the building. Forces say they found a tunnel shaft and a large weapons cache. It came as the United Nations Security Council passed its first resolution on the conflict after 4 previous drafts failed. FSN's Sally Patterson sent this report from UN headquarters in New York.
12 votes in favour and 3 abstentions from the United States, the United Kingdom and Russia. Speaking ahead of the vote, Malta, who proposed the resolution, said it offered hope in this dark hour. The resolution adopted on Wednesday demands compliance with international law, as well as safe and unhindered humanitarian access for United Nations agencies and their partners.
In the UK this week, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak fired his Home Secretary and appointed former Prime Minister David Cameron as his Foreign Secretary. Ollie Barrett sent this report from London following the first meeting of the newly reshuffled cabinet.
This broader reshuffle, which has seen a new Health Secretary, a new Environment Secretary, a new Home Secretary as well after Suella Braverman was sacked, is designed by Rishi Sunak to be a reset ahead of the next general election. He wants the best possible team in place to get ready to fight that election. Some Conservatives feel that David Cameron's foreign policy wasn't very successful when he was Prime Minister, and they wonder whether he is the best man for the job.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Yes, come on and listen to Free Talk Live. Yeah, we have content for you 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 p.m. on whatever radio station you're listening to us on right now, and or over at Free Talk Live, and or over at watch.freetalklive.com in case you prefer the video version, and or over at LRN.FM, and or over at twitch.freetalklive.com, and or a bunch of other places that I can't remember off the top of my head, so that's all the further I'm going with this.
And all those places 7 nights a week, except maybe the local radio station you're listening to it on.
Yeah, there are
radio stations carry all 7 nights.
And some of the radio stations will do what we call rebroadcast.
Right.
So we might do the show.
Nowhere carries Free Talk Live 7 nights a week. Like, we don't do that anymore.
Free Talk Live,
content
the
produced
show,
by Free Talk Live,
right, is still 7 nights a week. The live version of Free Talk Live happens 4 nights a week.
Right.
So-
But not all if you want to hear all 7 nights of content,
Yes.
you're
I thought
likely,
one of the nights was like Liberty at Night, and one of the nights is
okay, here, let me lay this out for not only you, but also the listeners who might be confused as to what we're talking about. Free Talk Live for
the brand.
For the longest time was 3 people sitting in the studio taking calls between 7 and 10 p.m. 7 nights a week. That has evolved into Free Talk Live, 3 people in the studio taking calls live 4 nights a week. Those nights are Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday.
So that's when Free Talk Live is on.
That is when the live version of Free Talk Live. Now, Free Talk Live has welcomed in a number of outside of this studio content producers.
To the Free Talk Live family.
pre-recorded, as it were.
The Free Talk Live family of content, if you will.
Of pre-recorded content.
Correct, yes. So on Monday nights, we have a specially produced show from Ernie Hancock of Declare Your Independence, or DIY, as we like to call it for short, or DYI.
Okay.
Declare Your Independence. On Tuesday nights, we have Liberty at Night, and then on Friday nights, we have Liberty Conspiracy.
With Gardner Goldsmith.
And we're happy to have that guy on. And in fact, last night, nice segue, by the way, last night he had Eric Peters of ericpetersautos.com on
Great
his
website.
show, whom... Richie, you and I were talking about this before the show.
Big fan.
I got introduced to Eric Peters Autos from like reading Lou Rockwell.
Yep, same here. I think that's pretty sure that's where my introduction was.
And I think like once a month or something, Lou Rockwell would feature something. Eric Peters, for those who don't know, is an automotive guy. He's a gearhead. He likes working on cars, and he does that. That's kind of his thing that he does for money or whatever. He works on cars and writes about vehicles. But he's also a libertarian.
Right.
And so he will write very libertarian-leaning articles that are sort of spawned from his experience as an automotive mechanic or somebody as an expert in his field. He's been doing it for years. And his tagline is always, throw it in the woods. Right? If it doesn't make any sense and it has no value to you.
So I know you made the segue, but I want to rewind a little bit to the Free Talk Live thing. Yep, we'll come back to it.
All right.
Those 3 other shows are for radio broadcast on stations that carry Free Talk Live.
Correct.
The live shows.
Right.
So if there are radio stations that carry us 7 nights a week, they're going to carry...
That used to carry us 7 nights a week.
No, they still do.
Yeah, there are radio stations
they don't.
that do.
They carry us 4 nights a week.
No.
And they carry the Free Talk Live family, Free Talk pre-recorded,
I mean,
3 nights a week.
You're nitpicking, so I'll let you be right.
Yeah, it's a semantic.
So
it's a semantic. It's
the idea
still Free
of the
Talk
show
Live, the brand.
is that it's Free Talk Live.
Okay.
That like we free talk,
Again,
but it's live.
You can stop there. I will allow you to be right because it deviates from the point that I'm driving at. So you can have that one. Golf clap for you. The point is, the radio shows that carry Free Talk Live and the Free Talk Live family, according to Peakless, may not carry all of those.
Right.
So if you want to hear all of that content, it may not be on your local radio station, and you should look into any of the other options that Captain listed off.
Such as freetalklive.com, for
there
example.
You
go. And so if you do, perhaps you subscribe to our RSS feed. Perhaps you are an amplifier. What's an amplifier, you might ask? Well,
another great segue.
An amplifier is somebody who helps Free Talk Live advertise, market, promote, and support. Yes, that spells amps. But you can find out all about that over at amps.freetalklive.com. Essentially, becoming an amplifier allows you to give some money to our organization that allows us to get this program and the Free Talk Live family of shows onto more radio stations than we're currently on. Right now, we're on something like 180 radio stations at last count, and we could be on more. We could be on 200. We could be on 250. We could be on 300 radio stations. None of this is out of the question. It's all up to you. There are some little perks that you get for becoming an amplifier. So if you go over to amps.freetalklive.com, we only ask for $5 a month. That's the silver level. There's a gold level and a platinum level and a diamond level. There's a bunch of, there's like some extraordinary levels that no one has ever signed up for, like the The big, like, I don't know, like
unobtainium level?
The unobtainium level. Yeah, I don't know that that's actually a level, but
vibranium.
Yeah, stuff like that. But like there have been some like pretty big givers over the years. So if you think that
if you give us 1 Bitcoin a month, you become adamantium level.
If you enjoy the hosts, the co-hosts, the content, the callers, the perspective that we bring of freedom, peace, prosperity to the airwaves, to the show, to human beings in general, please consider becoming an amplifier over at amps.freetalklive.com. I want to say thank you to Anthony Casaretto. Anthony Casaretto is a gold level amplifier. That means he gives $10, double the amount that we ask for. We only ask for $5, but he gives $10 a month as an amplifier to help advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. So thank you, Anthony Casaretto. We appreciate you and your contribution to what we do. I firmly believe that becoming an amplifier is, as Mark Edge might say, the best use of your Liberty dollar. So, moving on.
Segue back
Let's
to
not
Eric Peters.
move on. Let's move back.
Segue back to Eric Peters. Eric Peters Autos.
Yes.
So Gardner and Eric had a conversation last night, and they did talk about what we're about to talk about. The kill switch.
The kill switch.
The kill switch. What is the kill switch? Are you familiar with this?
No.
It shuts down your car without your knowledge or consent.
Yeah. So it's been going around the internet that's tucked inside of some recent bill that was passed by, the.
I think it's a bill that already
tyrants.
passed that they were trying to recall. Was Thomas Massey trying to recall?
They're trying to defund this specific portion.
Yep. Okay.
Of the bill is what's happening now. There's several articles about this that exist now, and a bunch of online commotion. What's the word?
Brouhaha.
We're hearing chatter.
Okay. The fact checkers have weighed in.
So we're going to go with this article from activistpost.com. Fact checkers are gaslighting you on the Fed's vehicle kill switch mandate. November 2021, former U.S. Representative from Georgia, Bob Barr, wrote a little-noticed political column claiming that buried inside President Biden's $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure legislation was a dangerous provision that would go into effect in 5 years. Marketed to Congress as a benign tool to help prevent drunk driving, the measure will mandate that automobile manufacturers build into every car what amounts to a vehicle kill switch, wrote Barr, who was the Libertarian Party's nominee for president in 2008. Wait, wasn't Ron Paul running as a Libertarian in 2008?
No, he was running as a Republican.
Okay, thank you. It was the previous when he ran for as Libertarian, right?
In the 70s.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Or an older campaign of his. Anyway,
all right.
Like most Americans, I had never heard of this alleged kill switch until a few days ago when Thomas Massey, a libertarian-leaning Republican, he's either a libertarian or he's not, proposed to strip the mandate's funding.
I mean, you say that, but you just referenced Ron Paul. Well, what would you consider Ron Paul? He was a Republican. He had libertarian leanings.
Yeah, I guess
Thomas Massey's no Ron Paul, but the verbiage is sound.
He's pretty darn close.
I guess
honestly,
you've got me there.
Honestly, Thomas Massey has been amazing at like every single time that I hear about him, he's doing something awesome.
Okay.
The right to travel is fundamental, but the government has mandated a kill switch in new vehicles sold after 2026, said Massey. The kill switch will monitor driver performance in disabled cars based on the information gathered. That's a quote from Thomas Massey, by the way. 19 Republicans joined an all but one Democrat in opposing Massey's amendment, which failed. True or false? The claim that the feds would mandate that every new motor vehicle include technology that could disable the vehicle seemed ludicrous. So I started Googling. This is the author of this article.
So we know Captain doesn't use Google.
That's right. I use search engine of my choice. That being said, every now and again,
Start page.
Every now and again, I gotta use the G. Just like
it's higher quality
it's
results.
Massive.
Man.
It's
well, I've found pre-search to be on the level with Google.
Pre-search?
It is pretty close.
Is it presearch.com?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But also, too, sometimes I will launch multiple search engines with the same search criteria and just see what the difference is between them and sort of aggregate them all together and be like, okay, this is the top story across all of them.
Yeah. That's kind of why I'm still on Google, because I've done the start page. I haven't done pre-search, never heard of it, but I've done the start page. I've done the DuckDuckGo. Yep. I've used whatever Brave has on the back end of their Brave browser.
I hate the Brave browser.
Okay, yeah, see?
Yeah, it's horrible.
Honestly, that's been my go-to.
The Brave search?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
How brave of you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Results may vary, because I go there and I go, this is not what I'm looking for, and then I Google it, it's like right there.
I've had that a number of times. I mean, sometimes it depends on the complexity of the search, right? If I'm like, restaurant near me, turn, your thing on, whatever, and it's like, okay, here's 5 restaurants. Like, a simple search, Brave will do the trick. But if I'm like contextually specific, right? Like, what kind of cup liners do I need in my my cupcake pan for baking quiche? Right? Instead of, like regular muffins or whatever, right? Like, that's a little specific. You plug that
Sounds
into,
like a lot of typing.
You plug that into Brave, and it's going to be like, did you want recipes for muffins? But if you plug that into some other search engine that might be larger and
Google,
more popularly named,
I'll say it.
You're going to get like,
glad you know who you're carrying water for.
Here's the top 5, inserts you should use for making quiche in a muffin pan. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a higher quality, but contextually specific, higher quality, right? So it's kind of like your drink at Starbucks, right? If you're just searching for like one word or two, any regular search engine will do.
If these search engines were my server at a restaurant, I would tip Google.
Oh, God. Oh, I don't want to ever tip Google. Just because they ruined YouTube. I'm still upset about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not letting that one go. YouTube was an amazing, I don't have any other word for it, an amazing piece of technology that allowed every person on planet Earth to compete in the world of video. And you used to be able to just go to the YouTube front page, and it would be just like, here's a lady from Indonesia with a camera in her bedroom doing a funny video. And it would literally be like, now if you go to their start page, it's just all pre-produced content.
But it has spurned competition.
Has it? I think it's annihilated competition, at least on its own platform.
On its own platform, yes. Yeah. But what I'm saying is other platforms have come up.
Really?
In an attempt.
Oh, how are they doing?
Terribly. Yeah. Because, again, they're outmatched.
Yeah, because they're not getting government funding.
Okay. Well, or Google funding, which I repeat myself.
Right. Seriously, do you have any idea how much government funding goes to Google? It is absurd, not to mention the carve-outs that they have in specific laws.
Yep.
Like, it is absolutely ridiculous.
Yep. Moving back to this article about the kill switch. To my relief, I saw several fact-checkers at legacy institutions had determined that the kill switch mandate was not true. Our rating false, said USA Today. Assessment false, said the Associated Press. We rate it mostly false, concluded PolitiFact. Snopes, a reliably left-leaning fact-check group, was a little less conclusive, saying the claim was a mixture of true and false. Unfortunately, my relief evaporated once I looked at the bill itself.
Go to the source.
Section 24220 of the law explicitly states, and I quote, to ensure the prevention of alcohol-impaired driving fatalities, advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology must be standard equipment in all new passenger motor vehicles. Unquote. So,
see, this part I knew about.
As Captain Context, the only real thing I can say about that statement is advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology.
What does that mean?
Well, if you take the word prevention out, you just read everything before it. You're thinking like advanced drunk and impaired driving technology.
You got to blow into the breathalyzer.
No, this is
time?
technology invented by drunks.
Oh, okay.
But no, that's not the case. Advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention technology must be standard equipment in all new passenger motor vehicles. The legislation then goes on to define the technology as a computer system that can passively monitor the performance of a driver of a motor vehicle and prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if an impairment is detected.
Who's monitoring this?
Indeed. How the system will make this determination is unclear, as is the government's potential role in apprehending suspected drunk drivers. There'll be more on that in this article later. But the law's language could not be more clear. New motor vehicles must have a computer system to monitor drivers, and the system must be able to prevent vehicle operation if it detects impairment.
How's it going to do that?
That's a good question. How fact checkers determined the kill switch narrative to be false is odd, especially since the articles don't deny Barr's central claim. The legislation mandates a computer system that will monitor driving performance and be able to disable motor vehicles. The AP conceded the law would prevent or limit motor vehicle operation if the system suspects the driver is impaired, or even disable the vehicle from being operated.
So the computer is going to determine this.
Right.
So did the USA Today and PolitiFact. They both acknowledged that that's what the technology is going to do.
So if you're zigzagging through potholes or avoiding deer crossing the street, it might look like you swerve.
Frogs, turtles, whatever.
Whatever.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
And then boom, your car just shuts down.
Maybe it shuts down. Maybe it only goes 30 miles an hour.
They discussed that in last night's episode,
It
too.
does give. Are you guys familiar with the automotive governor?
Yeah.
So this is a thing that they put in your car to prevent you from going above a certain speed limit.
Yeah.
I know of this because I did work in commercial transportation for a period of time where I drove a big white cube van, right, full of magazines, newspapers, that kind of stuff. I was a relay driver. I would go to a central location, pick up a bunch of stuff, and then go drive this route and drop these off at like stores and drugstores and, convenience stores, stuff like that. And there was a governor on the van that I drove. I could not go over 60 miles an hour, even if the speed limit was 65.
Mm-hmm. That's dangerous.
Right. But in my mind, you kind of learn to drive like a grandpa at that point. Yeah. You're like, well, I'm going to just be in the right lane. And, if somebody's up on your tail or whatever, you just kind of, hey, motion on, reach your hand out the window. Like, come on, pass me. I can't really go any faster than this. So good luck.
What I know from my accident, it wasn't a governor, it was a moped, which is, restricted just by top speed for engine size alone.
Yeah.
Was had I been able to speed up rapidly, I may have been able to get out of the way of the car that was about to hit me.
Right.
But I could not.
Yeah.
And so translate that to any other sort of car accident you might be able to avoid by accelerating as opposed to slamming on the brakes, right? Like clearing an intersection as someone might be about to T-bone you that you saw at the last minute.
Yep.
And the car prevents you from doing so, you're in harm's way.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, in fact, avoided what I believe to be a collision by I was coming up on we'll call it a hill, and the road had one of these things where it splits off into two lanes. So that if there's like a semi, that's driving too slow, it's supposed to get over into the right lane and let all the other traffic pass it, that kind of a thing. And so this was happening, but the guy in front of me didn't get over in the right-hand lane. There were two other cars behind we'll call it the semi, and one of the guys got over, the other guy didn't. And he had been already driving erratically, braking for what appeared to be no apparent reason, swerving, etc., and so on. I don't know if he was high, drunk, or getting a BJ while he was driving around or whatever, right? Like I have no idea what was going on, but like
we'll give him a pass if he was. Though.
I was still endangering me, right? Yeah. In my opinion, I'm like, I can't deal with this guy anymore. And so instead of passing him in the left lane, which I couldn't do because he was occupying it, I passed him in the right lane and then, got around. And because I could accelerate quickly, or at least more quickly than he was, I was able to get around him and then pass the semi before the lanes reduced back down to one.
Yep.
I got pulled over for that.
Oh,
because I went, I don't know,
Passing on the right?
12 miles an hour over the speed limit to do this maneuver or something like that, and then also passing on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got pulled over, the officer was like, hey, do you know I pulled you over? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, because you were doing like 12 over in this thing and you passed a guy on the right, what were you doing? I told him. I was like, look, man, this a-hole in front of me was doing this, that, and the other thing. Everybody else got over. He was still swerving and doing his thing, and so he didn't move. So I was like, to be safe, to avoid a collision, I passed him on the right. And the cop was like, oh, okay, cool. He ran my license, whatever, came back, and he's like, thanks, have a good day.
Nice.
Right. So
and put you right behind the a-hole.
Yeah. Now
I got to go pass him again, officer.
Now I'm like 15 minutes behind both of them, or all three of these vehicles, right? So yeah, it was for naught. But like the fact that you can get pulled over for doing a maneuver that you deem more safe.
Yep.
Right, is just another illustration of why government doesn't deserve to exist as an institution.
And I think really it was one of the terrible things that happened in the 70s, where they put the basic nature of the average citizen in contrast, at enmity with the basic life of the average police officer. Used to be, we just didn't interact with them unless either you screwed something up, and or somebody, including possibly you, called them.
Right.
Like, that was when you would interact with them.
Right.
And the rest of the time, you just left each other alone so that, like, they were actually useful when you were interacting with them.
Yeah.
Instead of just harassing people for money, which is a completely different dynamic. So instead of being tax collectors, which is what they are now,
revenue
they're a
generators.
randomized tax agent. That's all they are at this point. They will randomly take money away from people who aren't harming anyone. Whereas they used to, at least in theory, they would perform their job, or they would leave you alone.
Yeah. So in your case, Captain, there is a legal theory called the doctrine of competing harms. And if it is more dangerous for you to follow the law, you are allowed to break the law. Generally.
Maybe that's why they didn't give me the ticket.
That could be why. And you could have easily made that case in court had he given you the ticket.
Which could be avoided if we structured our legal system for actual harm.
I get it, but this is part of their legal system.
Yeah.
You can use this in their court system.
To arrive at their conclusion, the article continues, that this car-killing mechanism is just a fantasy. Fact-checkers resorted to sleight of hand. A common tactic was to debunk social media posts that were actually false or unfounded, like the popular claim that the systems would be required to alert law enforcement if the drivers were deemed impaired. None of the technologies currently in development would notify law enforcement, the Associated Press assured readers. More about the vehicle kill switch coming up. Hour number 2 of Free Talk Live is next. 603-283-6160.
Costco, even if you're not a member? I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. That membership fee sure is worth it if you shop deliberately. I have learned to avoid that large carton of chocolate-covered malted milk balls and other impulse buys, but Costco has the lowest prescription drug prices, and you don't need to be a member. Just tell the greeter you're there for the pharmacy, and you can shop without the Warehouse Club membership for other items via Instacart. If you are a member, you're probably in on the secret. Costco's Kirkland products are produced by major brand manufacturers. I have it on good authority that Costco vodka is made from Grey Goose's water source, and it's even scored higher in taste tests. Aggregate booze rankings rates it 88, and the Goose only got an 82. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks on the blog at andyoucanquoteme.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, the leaders of the US and China held their first face-to-face meeting in a year. Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping agreed to resume military-to-military communications and made joint commitments on fentanyl and climate change. They met on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Cooperation Summit in San Francisco, from where Ira Spitzer sent this report.
U.S. President Biden called the talks with China's president productive and praised the agreement to resume military-to-military communications, as well as a commitment from China to help crack down on Chinese firms involved in producing the precursors to the powerful synthetic opioid fentanyl. The two leaders also discussed areas of disagreement, including Taiwan, where Biden said the U.S. will adhere to the One China policy, but that he expects Beijing not to interfere in Taiwan's upcoming elections.
This week, the US averted a government shutdown. It ended with President Joe Biden's signature on the stopgap spending bill less than a day before the Friday midnight deadline. It came after the House and then the Senate swiftly passed the measure. The short-term bill was proposed by new House Speaker Mike Johnson and will fund 4 federal agencies until January the 19th and the remaining until February the 2nd, at which point new funding will be needed to be agreed on to again prevent a government shutdown. This week, Israeli soldiers entered Gaza's main hospital, Al-Shifa, to follow up on claims, backed by the White House, that Hamas had a headquarters under the building. Forces say they found a tunnel shaft and a large weapons cache. Hamas has denied operating inside or underneath the building. It came as the United Nations Security Council passed its first resolution on the conflict after 4 previous drafts failed. FSN's Sally Patterson sent this report from UN headquarters in New York.
12 votes in favour and 3 abstentions from the United States, the United Kingdom and Russia. Speaking ahead of the vote, Malta, who proposed the resolution, said it offered hope in this dark hour, focusing on the plight of children, both Palestinian and those taken hostage by Hamas. The resolution adopted on Wednesday demands compliance with international law, as well as safe and unhindered humanitarian access for United Nations agencies and their partners.
In the UK this week, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak fired his Home Secretary and appointed former Prime Minister David Cameron as his Foreign Secretary. Ollie Barrett sent this report from London following the first meeting of the newly reshuffled cabinet.
This broader reshuffle, which has seen a new health secretary, a new environment secretary, a new home secretary as well after Suella Braverman was sacked, is designed by Rishi Sunak to be a reset ahead of the next general election. He wants the best possible team in place to get ready to fight that election. Some Conservatives feel that David Cameron's foreign policy wasn't very successful when he was Prime Minister, and they wonder whether he is the best man for the job as a result. But Rishi Sunak sees him as someone who can appeal to voters in the centre ground of British politics.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, wrapping up our coverage of the APEC summit from San Francisco, where there are some mixed results emerging from a week of diplomacy. It's seen President Biden and President Xi Jinping declaring that a new era of at least slightly warmer relations between the United States and China is at hand. And while APEC leaders made progress on issues including improved supply chains, the transition to clean energy and anti-corruption efforts, they failed to agree language on trade that will lie at the heart part of the proposed Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Also, the conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine saw disagreements around the conference table. Vedant Patel is deputy spokesperson at the US State Department.
We have the ability to deal with multiple challenges and crises at the same time. We can ensure that we're helping flow humanitarian aid into Gaza. We're doing what we can to support our Israeli partners as they hold these terrorist groups accountable. We're also continuing to do everything we can to support our Ukrainian partners as they defend their territorial integrity and sovereignty. For a lack of a better word, we feel confident in our ability to walk and chew gum at the same time, and multilateral settings like this are a really unique opportunity to talk about these varying different issues with the respective member economies.
It is perhaps inevitable that a forum that includes the US, Russia and China was always going to be somewhat constrained in terms of outcomes. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And that was the Week in Review. There's more from us on X at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
College roommates continue their bonding process until real friends are made, and a teacher hopes they never Google him. It's time for the weekly video feature that's heartier and more comforting than a heaping bowl of mom's butternut squash soup. This is the Onion Week in Review. Longtime James F. Blaine Elementary School teacher Suzanne Pomponio told reporters today that she could not believe how much fatter her second graders are getting. Pomponio estimates that each and every one of her kids must be 8 to 10 pounds heavier than anyone in her 2011 class, adding, quote, "and those kids were pretty fat too."
Honestly, I didn't think it was possible that this year's kids could be fatter than last year's, but they are. I mean, short kids are fat, tall kids are fat, and there's a smell. I don't really know how to describe it.
Local dad Michael Carrain navigated several discount travel websites today with a precision reminiscent of 18th century Viennese prodigy Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart composing a symphony.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. Yes, it's James Hetfield. No, it's not. I sound nothing like James Hetfield, other than hey, we are here. Our phone number is.
Now you sound like you're from Boston.
603
283
6160
Yeah. 603-283-6160. James
good teamwork
Hetfield.
there.
James Hetfield is infamous for no other reason than stealing James Brown's shtick.
Okay.
So if you listen to a lot of James Hetfield of Metallica and the way he ends his sentences, right, and that kind of thing, and then you listen to a bunch of James Brown where he's all, yeah. Right?
Has he admitted to this,
Like,
or is this just a claim within the music industry?
It's a common claim within, we'll call it musicians.
All right.
Right? Not necessarily I guess technically the music industry, these are musicians who are, well, at least trying to make money.
I'd say that he didn't even rip him off. Like, are you going to tell me that Hetfield's now the hardest working man in music? I don't think so.
No. I'm saying his vocal isms were directly inspired.
Allegedly directly inspired
by James Brown. Yeah.
I mean, if he had came and said, like, oh, yeah, I listened to a bunch of James Brown, that was totally my inspiration, then, like,
I don't know that he's ever said that. Okay. I don't know that he hasn't, but it's my assertion, having listened to a bunch of James Brown and a bunch of James Hetfield, ironically both named James, that, yeah, there's a whole lot of similarity. Similarity going on.
Fair enough.
I do a horrible James Hetfield, and I'm not even going to try to impersonate James Brown. Before we go on, I need to let all of you know that this hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash master nodes. These master nodes then vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by the Treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and easy to use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. And big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. That's dash.org. I actually used them the other day. Something I wanted to get off of like Amazon or whatever. I went to bitrefill.com. And knowing that crypto's sort of on the rise, at least Bitcoin is right now.
Yep.
It was, I don't know, 37,000 or something like that.
It touched over 37 and dropped down to 35.
And I noticed that, like, you know, the fees were getting kind of high. To do what I wanted to do was going to cost me like $10 if I spent BTC or something like that. And I was like, well, wait a minute. How much Dash do I had enough Dash to do the thing I wanted to do?
Nice.
And so on BitRefill, I bought myself an Amazon Dash gift card. And bam! I mean, there was no wait at all. Usually when you go to like BitRefill and you try to buy a gift card with, you know, BTC or BCH or something like that, it'll be like, hey, we've detected your inquiry, your, you know, desire for a gift card, and we'll let you know. So you get an email, right? You log into the thing, you scan a QR code, you put in the amount, whatever, and then it sends you an email to whatever email address you put in the thing. And it goes, yep, we see your transaction, but it's not ready yet. You have to wait. And then later on, they'll send you another email that says, okay, now it's ready. And that's just them waiting for, like in the case of BTC, for the transaction to have enough, what's the word I'm looking for? Verifications.
Yep.
Enough verifications that the transaction is legitimate. Usually they wait for 3 to 7 verifications before they will declare the transaction legitimate. Dash, however, man, like I got the email confirmation that it had gone through and was ready before I got the one that said, hey, we're waiting.
Nice.
That's how quick it was. So I really enjoyed Dash just for that reason recently. We are called Free Talk Live, so let's go to the phones. Your calls and thoughts. We have an unscreened caller calling. What's your name, please?
Before you go on too far, that was the Dash read. Like, did we miss the whole Dash sent us money type of thing?
I did that before that.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
I missed it.
Unscreened caller, what's your name, please?
Dave in New Hampshire, also known as Ridley.
As in RidleyReport.com?
That guy.
What's on your mind, Dave?
So I have an update on Rebuild New Hampshire, or rebuildnh.com. They have put out a petition trying to stop the governor from, so it says, quote, now therefore we, the undersigned, hereby demand Governor Sununu and the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services to end their recommendation for children to receive the COVID-19 vaccines. Unquote.
Wait, what? Where? This is the New Hampshire legislature?
No, it's Rebuild NH, which is just a powerful anti-lockdown organization.
Okay, and so they're putting forth a recommendation that says we should no longer recommend COVID shots.
They want the governor and the state, you know, bureaucracies to stop recommending children get the vaccine, which I had no idea they were still doing. But anyway, the petition got 1,000 signatures on the first day. It was at about 1,600 signatures on day a couple days ago.
Here's my question when it comes to these petitions and signatures and the way you worded it, right? We demand the governor do something, whatever it is, right? What is that demand backed by should he not acquiesce to your demands?
Voting for Democrats.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Is that the threat?
How about just voting?
Well,
we recommend everybody just stop voting.
Well, that's different, right? But if the threat is we demand you do X, or we're going to vote for your competitor, and we know that the competitor's likely worse.
Yeah.
Is that really a threat?
Like, does seem pretty empty.
What is the weight of the demand?
Dave?
Well, I think if you want to do something that would get them, what Erica Chenoweth says, she's sort of the scientist of civil disobedience. She's been a guest on your show. She says all you really have to do is get all the people. You just have to get 3% of the people to do one relatively minor act of defiance, peaceable defiance. It has to be peaceable, and if you can do that, you can change government policy.
What is that peaceable act then in this case? Vote Democrat?
I think the one that she recommends, or she says the stats back it up the most strongly, is some kind of strike. So I suppose that could be a labor strike or a tax strike or like the boycott of the buses, which Martin Luther King, they had the bus strike. A strike, she says, is the most powerful thing.
Okay. I'm all for a tax strike, but the likelihood is they're going to come heavy-handed to recollect that money at some point.
Well, that's not the point, right? Like, if they're going to do something bad, that doesn't mean you help them.
Well, that's paying taxes altogether, right? If you're not paying taxes, you are helping them do bad things.
Well, and here's the thing. Everyone has a level of courage.
Yep.
Some people have the level of courage where they will stop paying taxes altogether.
Yeah.
Some people do not have that level of courage, but they still want you to stop recommending that people who are in no way, shape, or form at risk from COVID not be recommended to get a vaccine that you are at risk from.
I get it, but it's the phrasing of the demand. We demand that you do this with nothing backing it.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah. It's like a child going, I demand to stay up past my bedtime, and mom or dad going like, no.
Aw, isn't that adorable?
Right. I feel like that's the way they look at anything they're demanded of them by the people.
It's better to, speak softly and carry a big stick. But, I Rebuild NH has a track record now. They've been doing a lot of things for a long time. I'm glad they're there. I think I appreciate what they're doing.
We were sending a strongly worded letter to the governor suggesting that he probably should reconsider, right? Would probably carry more weight than a demand that's not going to be backed by anything, right? Like if you're going to ask your master to change, you might as well phrase it as a question and a request.
I like that you phrased that as if you're going to ask your master to change.
Well, that is exactly what this is.
Yes.
Like when we, the little people, talk to His Excellency, then we are requesting a change of treatment among your slaves
already.
Huh?
Doesn't we mean little already?
We? Different kind of we.
Yeah.
Oh, so it'd be we, the we people?
And if it's we, then it's completely different entirely.
The we people. Wow.
Here's another thing too that works better, I think, and that is again for all the good that Rebuild NH does, they are kind of hacking at a branch, right? Like COVID is just one issue, and they're just dealing with one aspect of one issue right now. It's better to strike the root, and the bad New Hampshire COVID policies, to the extent that they exist mostly because of New Hampshire's connection to the federal government. That's what corrupts almost everything that happens in New Hampshire. So that's why New Hampshire independence legislation that's why I focus on that, because I can't play whack-a-mole with all these different bad things that are happening.
Yeah, I mean, when this was going through, the only reason that we adopted the policies that we did is because we wanted to be in compliance with all of the other states that were surrounding us. And if New Hampshire was not a part of the states, then there wouldn't be a motivation to do that.
Right. Good point.
So New Hampshire does have independence legislation coming up this coming year, and that's what I'll focus on. But I can always tell you what Rebuild is doing.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't know anything about Rebuild NH or what they're doing.
Yeah, so tell the listeners more, Dave.
Oh, well, I mean, they're against COVID lockdowns. That was how they were formed. So they go back to 2020.
So it's a fairly new organization.
Yeah, they've organized demonstrations. I believe Andrew Manous was in charge at first, and now Melissa Blasick, if I'm saying that correctly, is in charge. They're both current or former state reps. Manus is a free stater. They just take a pretty standard lockdown. I say anti-lockdown. That means they're also going to be against like federal funding for COVID procedures inside New Hampshire, or any sort of restrictions on employment. Now, one area where they take a non-libertarian position is they've tried to back legislation that stops businesses from firing you if you refuse to get the vaccine, that kind of thing. So that's kind of taking it too far. But like so many conservative-leaning organizations, they're about 80%, and maybe in their case more like 90% pro-freedom.
All right, fair enough.
Anything else you want to share tonight, Dave? No,
that is the whole shebang.
Well, before you go, what can we who are looking to, as you point out, to hack at the root of this, to support New Hampshire independence, what can we do for that as well?
The most useful thing you could do if you're in New Hampshire is show up at the hearing, which will probably be around February 2024, where they discuss the independence bill. It's secession legislation that lets the people vote in a referendum basically on secession. So what we had last time, 2 years ago when this came up, we had a lot of people, a good rally outside, a nice publicity stunt where everybody sang the New Hampshire national anthem, and it was a lot of fun. It was really inspiring. But hardly anyone got in front of that committee and said how the federal government had hurt them personally. And that's what's missing. You need to talk about your own experience. You can't go in there and talk about policy when you're giving State House testimony or how you like something or don't like it. That is unimportant. All that matters to that committee is what happened to you. You've got to go in there and you tell it, like, for instance, I would tell them about the time I was arrested for handing out flyers, right, by the feds.
Yep.
So you go in and you tell them what the Fed did to you. That's how you get movement in a committee. Does that make sense?
Good advice, Dave.
How can people find out more about NH Independence?
NHexit.us is the best source, but there are many sources.
Awesome. Dave Ridley, thank you. RidleyReport.com if you want to find out more about what he does. We appreciate you, man. 603-283-6160. Do you want to talk to Skeeter tonight?
We avoided him all week last week. So.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring him on. It's Skeeter here.
It's a boy.
It's a boy. Skeeter here on Free Talk Live.
Skit scat skills.
It's a boy.
We already did the shtick, man.
Yeah. Now you've double
Evolutionary
shtick.
capitalist, young Skeet. Hey,
young Skeet.
You know what behavior the market
Wait.
incentivize?
Skeeter, how old are you?
Doesn't matter.
Approximately.
Well,
you said you're
only
young.
if you're claiming to be young.
Yeah, you said you're young.
We find out that you're an 85-year-old man and you're young Skeet. I mean...
Yeah, are you like
mentally
15?
young? Mentally young.
I'm an 80-year-old trans woman. Does that make more sense?
Well, you are in California. I would absolutely identify as an 80-year-old trans woman if I lived in California. So that would make sense.
That would make that would put into context my voice, right? So you know what behavior the market won't incentivize? The defense of natural rights. I'm here to.
Why would the market not incentivize that?
Because I'm here to use evolutionary profit to debunk libertarian.
Wait, okay. So first of all, can you cite an instance where the market did not incentivize that?
Yeah. Property rights, like self-ownership, it doesn't guarantee. Again, I said natural rights, so I'm here to use evolutionary profit to debunk property rights, homesteading, rightful transfer, restitution, and all those things. I'm here to show that evil capitalism's principle of evolutionary profit.
And again, I'm going to ask.
Not even accounting profit or utilitarian.
Give me an
profit
example of where the market did not incentivize those things.
We stole USA from the Indians, right?
That wasn't the market. Like, believe it or not, stealing things is not the market. In fact, stealing is literally the opposite of the market. Like, when we talk about the free market, it is free from theft, coercion, and fraud.
No, it isn't.
That
The
is
market's all
literally
about
the
profit.
definition of a free market, is a
No,
market which
no,
is
I'm-
free from theft, coercion,
I'm not
and
talking about the free
fraud.
market. I'm talking about the market, which is the real
Well,
real
the
market.
freer it is, the more of a
free
market it
market is a
is. And
free
the
market
less
is a
free it
myth.
is, the less of a market and the more of something other than a market it is.
Is free market redundant?
Why don't you guys give
Somewhat.
back your land
All right.
to the Indians? Why
Except
don't you
that
give back your
in
land to
most
the Indians?
cases, there is not a free market. There is a mixed market.
Okay.
Why don't you give your land back to the Indians?
I would love
And
to
how
answer
come-
that.
how
I would
come
love
you
to
guys
answer that,
cannot
Skeeter.
make
Hang on.
sense of Israel and Palestine
Skeeter.
using homestead?
Skeeter. All right, putting him back on hold for a minute.
Why don't you give your land back to the Indians?
Well, first of all, I don't really have claim to the land. It's the federal government and
pay
or the
rent.
state government to whom I pay rent to.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I wanted to, let's just say I fulfilled my agreement, which is a mortgage, right? I fulfilled my agreement to pay off the property which I've purchased. Once my contract is fulfilled, I still yet must pay rent to a government entity in the form of taxation, and so therefore
in perpetuity.
In perpetuity. I can't even give away my property to the Native Americans if I wanted
That's the way
to.
it should be, because you're obligated to pay property taxes because it's still U.S. territory. Number one, first and foremost, it's U.S. territory.
What is the
evolutionary
U.S.?
capitalist.
It's
Bad
U.S.
capitalist.
territory.
Go ahead.
It's the land that the U.S. government and all the people fought for. We pay
All the people.
pay money to defend
That's a
it.
lot of people.
You guys cannot defend yourselves from people like Russia, China. If you guys were in Ukraine's place, you would get taken over in a heartbeat.
I feel like
They can't even take over the Ukraine in a heartbeat.
I feel like Skeeter is getting upset.
That's why you want to steal without help.
I can
Remember,
hear the
without help.
spittle of Skeeter hitting his phone.
With your help,
Because you guys
they
keep
still
interrupting.
haven't
Stealing
repelled.
what is rightfully mine, which is your protection.
That's why you want to steal New Hampshire and free ride national defense, because you know if you had to go to places like Liberland, you would get taken over.
How would
by
it
a small
free ride
country.
national defense?
Easily.
We'd have to
And
defend
Ukraine-
ourselves
Ukraine is
against the
only able to
encroachment of the
defend
federal government.
Skeeter, hang on. Go ahead, Richie.
No, you guys keep it. And Ukraine is only.
All right, fine. That's
I was
enough.
I was suggesting that if New Hampshire freed itself from the confines of the federal government.
I was going to let him go for another 2 minutes, but
Oh
no.
man, no,
He had
yelling incoherently. That we would then necessarily have to defend ourselves against some encroachment by the United States federal government.
Right.
No doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm betting on us.
I would bet on us.
Yeah.
I would too,
Well, I
and
mean,
also I wouldn't
if we
bet
had
that the federal government would do anything really, because think about that. Let's just say everybody in New Hampshire got together and said, you know what, no more. We declare our independence.
Yeah.
Right. And they went, oh yeah, and then a bunch of us sort of hung out at the borders, if you will, armed or unarmed or whatever it is, for a while.
It would
right?
take a while.
My guess is the federal government is going to do two things, Jack and S.
Okay.
Because they are not about to approach the the character assassination that would happen if they declared war on their own turf.
It wouldn't be their turf anymore, though.
Well, but that's what I'm saying,
Okay.
is they don't want that PR or lack of, right? They don't want that negative responsibility. I think that they might put up some sort of a show.
Okay.
They might, but I think in the long run, they would back off because they
you don't
don't
think
want
we'd
to
have
be.
border guards on horseback at the Massachusetts border, keeping the rabble out of Massachusetts?
Well, there's one thing. There's one thing keeping Massachusetts people from coming into.
No,
New
I'm talking
Hampshire.
about
It's another thing.
I'm talking about
keeping-
United States federal border guard now on the borders of Massachusetts, preventing.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened already.
Okay.
What with all the New Hampshire independence
All right.
talk and organizations, and I am truly surprised.
I'm just saying they're on the Mexican border, and we did a story. Was it last week or the week before about them trying to enhance it on the Canadian border?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
We would be adversarial for a period of time. I don't know how long that would be. Before
But
they
you have to
decided
ask
to open up
yourself
trade.
one simple question. Do you think that New Hampshire is less able to defend itself than Vietnam and Afghanistan.
I think it's far more ready and able to do so.
Right.
In my opinion.
Right.
603-283-6160. Do you support divorcing the federal government? Give us a call. Let us know. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, the leaders of the US and China held their first face-to-face meeting in a year. Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping agreed to resume military-to-military communications and made joint commitments on fentanyl and climate change. They met on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Cooperation Summit in San Francisco, from where Ira Spitzer sent this report.
U.S. President Biden called the talks with China's president productive and praised the agreement to resume military-to-military communications, as well as a commitment from China to help crack down on Chinese firms involved in producing the precursors to the powerful synthetic opioid fentanyl. The two leaders also discussed areas of disagreement, including Taiwan, where Biden said the U.S. will adhere to the One China policy, but that he expects Beijing not to interfere in Taiwan's upcoming elections.
This week, the US averted a government shutdown. It ended with President Joe Biden's signature on the stopgap spending bill less than a day before the Friday midnight deadline, and will fund 4 federal agencies until January the 19th and the remaining until February the 2nd, at which point new funding will be needed to be agreed on to again prevent a government shutdown. This week, Israeli soldiers entered Gaza's main hospital, Al-Shifa, to follow up on claims, backed by the White House, that Hamas had a headquarters under the building. Forces say they found a tunnel shaft and a large weapons cache. It came as the United Nations Security Council passed its first resolution on the conflict after 4 previous drafts failed. FSN's Sally Patterson sent this report from UN headquarters in New York.
12 votes in favour and 3 abstentions from the United States, the United Kingdom and Russia. Speaking ahead of the vote, Malta, who proposed the resolution, said it offered hope in this dark hour. The resolution adopted on Wednesday demands compliance with international law, as well as safe and unhindered humanitarian access for United Nations agencies and their partners.
In the UK this week, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak fired his Home Secretary and appointed former Prime Minister David Cameron as his Foreign Secretary. Ollie Barrett sent this report from London following the first meeting of the newly reshuffled cabinet.
This broader reshuffle, which has seen a new health secretary, a new environment secretary, a new home secretary as well after Suella Braverman was sacked, is designed by Rishi Sunak to be a reset ahead of the next general election. He wants the best possible team in place to get ready to fight that election. Some Conservatives feel that David Cameron's foreign policy wasn't very successful when he was Prime Minister, and they wonder whether he is the best man for the job.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Yes, welcome back. It is Free Talk Live, the live radio call-in talk program where you can take control of the airwaves. Talk about whatever's on your mind. You don't have to talk about what we're talking about. It's fine. You can bring up any topic. There's very few rules here, but of course the most important is don't cuss. No cussing allowed. Sadly, we are governed, i.e. regulated by a bunch of tyrants calling themselves the FCC, who claim to own the air. Large boo.
And sometimes the host needs to self-censor more frequently as well.
It happens.
It does.
I have dumped myself, and I will dump myself again, I'm sure, because the FCC doesn't like how I talk. So, at any rate, 603-283-6160. That's the phone number if you want to call. Join us tonight.
And the less incoherently you yell into the phone, the more likely we are to keep you on longer.
Like, we are a radio program, right? So while there are some people that want to call in and debate the finer points of mathematical equations and how it relates to the price of tea in China today, like, we're not going to talk about that. It's boring, right? Not only is it boring, but like no one else wants to hear about that. So be entertaining and be willing to have a conversation. Those are really the only rules. And don't cuss.
If you bring it up, we might address it, though. Because you can talk about anything.
Yeah, but we aren't going to dwell on it and spend a half an hour or whatever talking about that, right? Because it's just not
It's a
entertaining.
general audience show.
Right. We have to be, first and foremost, we are a show, and so entertainment is at the top of our things to do, if you will, during the show. But we're also a freedom-oriented show, so we like to come at things from the perspective of, what would life be like without government, because government is the antithesis of freedom. If you don't believe me, look it up. Government as an institution is the exact opposite of freedom because it violates consent. The existence of government violates consent.
Yep.
And that's my perspective the whole time.
Yeah. The nature of that organization type,
yes,
as compared to anything else,
yes,
is to violate consent.
And it's the only organization, the only institution on planet Earth that is based on the violation of consent.
Well, it's the only socially acceptable one, yeah. I mean, like whatever Jeffrey Epstein was running, that was definitely founded on the idea of violating
socially
consent.
Tolerated versus socially acceptable.
What, governments?
Yes.
No,
And I say that because most people tolerate governments.
No, that is wrong.
But
that is so far wrong. Most people equate what is legal with what is moral.
Yep.
That's horrible.
I wish that were not the case, but that is the case. So, let's be honest about what we're doing here.
And when they change the law, they will realign their morality.
Yes, that is correct. So smoking pot in New Hampshire, currently, morally bad. But if we ever change the law, then it will be morally good.
Well, I mean, they're not arresting people for smoking pot in New Hampshire. They're not arresting people for having pot under, 2 ounces, or I don't know what it is. Don't quote me on that.
Which is why it is only slightly morally evil.
And in fact, in ways, I kind of like what New Hampshire has done versus some of the other states.
That have legalized it?
Well, have they, though? Or have they just governmentally institutionalized it?
Tax and regulate.
All right.
Right.
Enough.
So, there's arguments to be made for both the legalization and or, to me, legalization should just be we wipe off all the laws about marijuana off the books, and now you can do whatever you want, however you want, and you're free to do so. Yeah. That's not what happened in Vermont. That's not what happened in Maine. That's not what happened in Massachusetts. It's not what happened in Colorado. It's not what happened in Washington State.
And even that wouldn't work. So even if Vermont or Colorado or wherever decided we will wipe off the books 100% of the marijuana legislation, that still wouldn't make it legal because they're still under the auspices of the federal government where it is a Schedule I drug.
Yeah.
They were talking about rolling that back a little bit recently too.
Yes, they have. Well, maybe you won't go to jail forever if you have this flour. Aren't we benevolent dictators?
Yeah, and to all of these states,
I think it was more for research.
Like, it would take more than that. If you actually wanted true legalization of cannabis in New Hampshire, we'd have to pass a law saying we will not allow people to be persecuted for this.
By the federal government.
By the federal government.
Yeah.
We'd have to, like, so specifically, for example, it's written into the New Hampshire Constitution that we have a right to privacy.
Yes.
More reason to secede.
So,
yes,
in order to do this, like, it wasn't enough that we just remove all of the things that are restricting your privacy.
Yep.
Because then the federal government will absolutely spy on you. No, we have said no. Not only is there not a law against it, there is a law protecting it.
I want to just say this to all of the states, if you will, that have, quote, legalized, unquote, marijuana, i.e., made it an incredibly regulated market where the government taxes each thing by, 20, 30% at every level. The growers, the distributors, the retailers, right? They dictate how your store can look, like what kind of decorations.
That's the weirdest
and all this kind of crap. That is not a free market at all.
No.
That is the government going, no. We are allowing you to sell this plant for the purposes of us extracting tax money from your customers.
Well, okay.
And
Now,
how many
hang
of these?
on.
And how many of these places you can't even take a seed, a piece of nature, and plant it in the ground?
It's like your garden.
That will put you in jail.
So I want to say to all of these states that have, quote, legalized, unquote, marijuana, the next time you need funding for whatever insert special pet project you have here, the way you're going to go about getting that funding is not by raising more taxes. You're going to go about getting that funding by releasing the appropriate amount of prisoners in your jails in your state who are in there on marijuana charges. And then you're going to recoup that money and use that for your special pet project.
I want to suggest that it might be a little unreasonable to expect that those states legalizing marijuana to put it in a category enhanced above and beyond as far as freedom and whatnot, beyond general goods and services, right? Like general goods and services,
Okay.
they already tax and regulate. I'm not saying they should, but they already do.
Okay.
So when marijuana comes up for legalization and they go, well, it's going to be like Coca-Cola. We're going to tax and regulate. You can only put X amount of sugar or saccharin or whatever, in per can of Coca-Cola.
And so in New Hampshire, if there's no, tax on goods or whatever, if it's not
it's an enhanced category above and beyond the general thing. Well, New Hampshire doesn't have a sales tax, so
Right.
it shouldn't.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
So
yeah.
in New Hampshire, if that were the case, then it would just be for sale however you wanted to, and it would be up to the consumer to purchase it in a way, shape, and form from a person whom they've chosen voluntarily.
Which
to
is why the weirdest
procure.
thing is limiting the way the store can look. Because generally,
Right.
that's excessive above and beyond the way they tax and regulate other goods and services.
Right, and I can illustrate this very easily. Anyone who has even ever heard of the marijuana culture in Amsterdam knows that in Amsterdam, if you want to go buy a joint or a pack of joints or whatever, you don't go to the weed store. You go to the coffee shop. The fact that there isn't a coffee shop in the United States currently amongst all of the states, any of the states that have, quote, legalized, unquote, marijuana, where a coffee shop sells marijuana should tell you all you need to know about the supposed legalization. People cannot do what they want with this plant. People cannot do what they want with this flower. If they could, I could go out tomorrow and open a weed coffee shop. But I can't do that because even in the states where it's illegal or made of a very low priority to persecute, I cannot do that. I am not free to do that.
Yeah. And the reason that I don't know if it will ever be legal in New Hampshire specifically is because it is a competing product with alcohol. Pure and simple. And our politicians, politicians in the country are bribed by alcohol producers. Make no mistake there. But in this particular state, it is a huge part of the state funding.
What I like
because
about
it's run by the state,
right?
It's not even tax
the
regulated.
liquor stores are all state run. What I like about what New Hampshire has done by they use the word decriminalization. And I hate that word because it doesn't describe what they've done. What they've done is they've made prosecuting marijuana the lowest priority for any law enforcement.
Yeah, so it's low priority criminalization.
Not so lowest, specifically lowest. So no one is touching these cases. If anybody gets arrested for anything like that, it's just because the cop was being a dick. Right, and then like whoever wrote, they'll be like, whatever, get out of here. Right?
I mean,
released on his own recognition. We're never going to. So what I like about New Hampshire and what they did is that they did not make the state a competing entity to, I'm going to call him the street dealer, right? Your regular guy, right? Whoever it is, like if you're a marijuana connoisseur and you live in New Hampshire, you don't, like maybe you go across the border to a legal store to one of the states around us or whatever because it's a small state, but you likely have a regular guy, right? Dave, let's call him, right? Not Ridley. We'll call him Bob for lack of a better.
Because Dave's not here?
Because Dave's not here. So let's say Bob is your guy, right? You're like, hey, Bob, what do you got? Can I get? And he's like, sure. Like in every other state that, quote, legalized it, the street dealers still exist, right? They didn't put them out of business in any way, shape, or form. But what they did is they launched the state now as competition in the marketplace, albeit the black market, if you were the gray market, for marijuana. Now, what this did is it forced your regular dealers, your Bobs out there, to be more competitive, to carry different products and that kind of a thing. So they had to like sort of expand their repertoire
I was
or whatever.
comfortable being just a weed dealer, but I can't just sling weed and it be worth my time. I better expand into coke.
Let's just say they can, right? Let's just say that they were
edibles.
the weed dealer, and that's all they did. Now, instead of just carrying bud, they got to carry edibles, or they got to carry vape cartridges, or they got to make those available to their customer base in some way, shape, or form, right? So legalization in the states that have, quote, legalized it, unquote, all they've done is made the state like the biggest competitor to the street dealer. So if you're a street dealer and you can't compete with the quality and service of the state stores, then you're going to go out of business real quick. Whereas in New Hampshire, none of that happened. The Bobs in New Hampshire are still being Bob. Right. They don't have this state level competition, at least within the state.
Right.
And that's kind of what I like about it, because they haven't introduced this false tyrannical market mechanism that forces people to now like expand beyond their original breadth, right? Whatever they could handle.
Right.
I mean, does it matter where the competition comes from?
Yes.
Like, if you can't compete with the state on like price and quality.
It does, because the state has the advantage that no other market entity has.
Go on.
They won't get arrested?
It's the state.
Well, but if it's legal,
right? It's the state, right? They have that advantage. They're mandating how things should be done instead of allowing the market to decide how things should be done.
In just about every other example that we will bring up on this show, we will say that private industry can do it better than the state, than any government. Or look how bad the government runs; they can't even do X.
This is why Bobs still exist in the states that have legalized marijuana.
Well, but you're in the other side of your mouth is saying that the state is putting Bob out of business.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Oh, I'll make that argument for sure. In Colorado, you lost so many Bobs.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They all went out of business because they were competing with, I mean, it's really simple. They were still running the risk of being arrested, having to show up in court to defend the fact that they had this flower, whereas all of these brick and mortar shops, they are not facing that risk.
Are the consumers getting higher quality weed at a better price?
They're getting higher.
Whatever.
It's the same. Honestly, it is you get very high quality at the same price. But because the shops that have gone through the rigmarole, that have jumped through the hoops, that have paid off and are continuing to pay off, the state and the city, because they receive a certain amount of protection from the federal government, from the state government and the city government.
You would think that overhead would drive up prices.
No, not at all.
Well,
no. So prices of restricted anything are inflated because of the risk associated with them
and the tax. So, for example, in Washington State, when they legalized marijuana, they taxed the growers at 30%. They taxed the distributors at 30%. They taxed the retailers at 30%. You do the math there, right? What does that do to the price? So the Bobs around are like, oh, I can beat that price.
Then they don't have to
No
diversify
problem.
it. They just beat the price.
I'll give you an example, too, because I was a fan. Like, I lived in Seattle, and, like, for the first time on planet Earth, you could walk down to a store and buy weed in a store, right? That was amazing. I'm that old, right? I'm dating myself here. But, like, I grew up always looking over my shoulder whenever anybody was like, dude, you want to smoke a joint? You know? And so it was the most amazing thing to finally, like, be able to be like, oh, my gosh, there's a pot shop down the road from my apartment, right? So I both employed Bob, if you will, and the local weed store, depending on my needs or necessity. I'll give you an example. I was having a little, we were going to go to see a friend of mine's concert, and so I'd have people over at the house, and my friend, we'll call him B, he came over, and he was supposed to bring weed, right? You know, we could smoke up before we go to the show. And he's like, oh, dude, man, I left my weed at home. And I'm like, okay, dude, walk your ass down the block, right? 2 blocks on the left-hand side is, you know, the local pot shop. And go get us. He's like, okay, I'll be right back. And so he did.
Okay.
Right. And so I didn't have to call Bob. Now, at the same time, I went to the same store that used to have a wake and bake special on like Sundays or whatever. So if you get there at between 9 and 10, there was like, I don't know, 10% off. Plus they had this grab bag thing where if you just gave them $20, you reach your hand into this bag and grab one item, and whatever that was is what you got for $20. It was usually worth double that. Right, because the way the legislation worked is that you had expiration dates on your product, even though, like, if it's hermetically sealed, marijuana's not going bad, right? But they were like, well, what can we do with this product that's about to expire? Oh, we'll do a wake and bake special, right?
Yeah.
Grab bag on Sunday. So I go in there, and I had been in there a bazillion times. I knew Jim and Janet and Greg and Martha, you know, all the people that regularly work there. It's like going to a bar, like, oh, Norm, or whatever, right? When you walk in. And so I go in, I'm like, yeah, I want to, let me get a grab bag and let me, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, it'll be this much. And they have this machine that takes your Washington State driver's license. It's got a barcode on the back or whatever.
Yep.
And they just shove your license down into this machine. They go, right? And then it gives you like a green light or a red light, apparently. I didn't know this.
Okay.
I just watched them do it every time I went in there. And I'm like, that's kind of weird that they're scanning my license every time I make a weed purchase. There's no reason for them to track that at all. But they did nonetheless. And so the guy goes, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't sell to you. And I'm, thanks for joking around with me, Dave, or whatever the guy's name was. And he's like, no, really, I can't sell this to you because your license has expired. And I'm like, but dude, I'm like 45 years old or something, right? You know? And he's like, sorry, man, I don't write the law. Right, you know, this kind of a thing. And so I could not, even though I was fully gray beard, not fully, but like gray in the beard, and they knew me, they just could not sell to me because my state license has expired.
Understood.
Even though it totally said that I was way more than old enough. I didn't have a passport or anything like that. But they were just like, nope, sorry. So what did I do? I called Bob.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, Bob, I couldn't buy it today because my license is expired. He's like, what do you need?
Right. So that would be a fine example, right? Because if we're going to make the argument on the show that the free market, the black market, the gray market, you know, the unrestricted market can do it better than the restricted market can, and we have this prime example in front of us of what used to be a restricted market, you know, now with government being one of the competitors, the black market should still do a better job.
It does.
Okay, but that's your claim. Peakless has argued conversely, right? So
no, I still agree with that, but it also drives a bunch of them out. So whereas there used to be 100 Bobs, now there's like 5 or 10 Bobs.
Okay, but they should still be able to compete, provide higher quality at a lower price than the state institution. And if that's not the case, then we need to look deeper as to why that might be.
What I saw just from personal experience was the state stores had a wider variety of selection.
Okay.
Although limited quantity.
Okay.
Right. So if I wanted to buy, I don't know, you know, mint chocolate edibles that were sugar free, they'll have like 1 pack on the wall, right? On there, maybe 2.
Got it.
Right. And then if I buy them both, they're out for weeks.
Right. So we would look at that as a market opportunity for any other competitor to go like, well, mint edibles, there's clearly more demand than there is
Buy
supply.
my 5-pound bag of mint edibles, right? Instead
whatever
of my,
it is.
3-ounce bag or whatever it is.
There is an abundance of demand for a product that the state is not supplying.
Right.
Then you move to the black market, and that should be still more competitive.
Right.
Well, and the way that it competes at that point is with service.
Sure.
So, if
they wouldn't sell to the captain?
If sugar-free mint chocolate edibles are your thing, and it's like, man, I gotta hit up a new shop every time I want this because they only carry 1 bar of this stuff. But if you have your Bob, and he knows that, like, I have a reliable customer for mint chocolate edibles.
Yep.
Then it will be worth his effort to either source or himself figure out how to turn his weed into mint chocolate edibles because he knows that he's got a reliable customer.
Yep.
Whereas the corner store, they don't know that they have a reliable customer. And even if they did, they tend to be much slower moving. Anything with a corporate structure tends to be very inflexible.
And to your point, my Bob in this particular story made house calls.
Nice.
So, which is illegal for the stores to do.
Right.
Like the stores couldn't. You don't get like Uber weed, right? You can do Uber
illegally
Eats.
good service.
You can do Uber Eats, but like if marijuana was truly legal,
service so good,
you could get on your Uber app and be like, I need an ounce of some Maui Wowie. Right, I need some Girl Scout cookies.
So
and give me some mint chocolate edibles too, and deliver them to my house, please. That's a free market.
Back to you, Captain. Yeah. What would happen to the Bobs in New Hampshire if they legalized? If we know they can outcompete the state apparatus anyway?
I think there would be consolidation because the mass majority of people would begin shopping at the stores because it's an experience they've never had before.
Okay, that fades.
It does. Right? It does.
Like the line at Krispy Kreme is out the door and around the corner every time they open up a new one, right? And eventually there's just a regular line of customers.
Well, I think it's
so Bob becomes a niche at that point.
That's fine.
So the thing is, most people, they really do believe that legal and good are the same thing.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
Nice way to bring it back.
Most people would really prefer to do, okay, well, I mean, I got to go out myself, even though there's 3 feet of ice out there, but it's legal. So I'm going to go to the corner store. Whereas some people, there's a niche that are like, you know what? I actually enjoy it when I'm getting my pot illegally. Makes me feel rebellious. So that's your niche, and that's where your Bob serves.
I think the difference in this case is that it has been illegal so long that the first customers lining up at the door aren't going to be people trying weed for the first time.
Right.
They're going to be regular weed smokers trying this new mechanism for distribution for the first time.
Yeah.
And they will already have that black market comparison in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they're going to automatically think the government weed is better. They're going to have a basis for comparison and may still choose Bob.
Well, and then the Bobs that still exist in competition with the state-sponsored stores will simply have to do what every other entity under competition has ever had to do.
Innovate and get better.
There you go. So they will do things like, delivery, for example.
There you go.
Right? They will carry odd products, or if they have a niche segment of customers that are always buying X, they'll make sure that they always have X on hand, right? They'll do those things. Or when they get a shipment of X in, they'll be like, they'll call all their customers, be like, hey man, I know you're a regular. I've got this.
Then I still think you should be okay with New Hampshire legalizing it. Regardless.
Depends on how they legalize it. Because if they're still making it illegal for me to put a seed into some dirt, then it's not a move in the right direction.
603.
It's still a move in the right direction.
No, it's not.
613-283-6160. Hour number 3 of Free Talk Live is coming up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, the leaders of the US and China held their first face-to-face meeting in a year. Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping agreed to resume military-to-military communications and made joint commitments on fentanyl and climate change. They met on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Cooperation Summit in San Francisco, from where Ira Spitzer sent this report.
U.S. President Biden called the talks with China's president productive and praised the agreement to resume military-to-military communications, as well as a commitment from China to help crack down on Chinese firms involved in producing the precursors to the powerful synthetic opioid fentanyl. The two leaders also discussed areas of disagreement, including Taiwan, where Biden said the U.S. will adhere to the One China policy, but that he expects Beijing not to interfere in Taiwan's upcoming elections.
This week, the US averted a government shutdown. It ended with President Joe Biden's signature on the stopgap spending bill less than a day before the Friday midnight deadline. It came after the House and then the Senate swiftly passed the measure. The short-term bill was proposed by new House Speaker Mike Johnson and will fund 4 federal agencies until January the 19th and the remaining until February the 2nd, at which point new funding will be needed to be agreed on to again prevent a government shutdown. This week, Israeli soldiers entered Gaza's main hospital, Al-Shifa, to follow up on claims, backed by the White House, that Hamas had a headquarters under the building. Forces say they found a tunnel shaft and a large weapons cache. Hamas has denied operating inside or underneath the building. It came as the United Nations Security Council passed its first resolution on the conflict after 4 previous drafts failed. FSN's Sally Patterson sent this report from UN headquarters in New York.
12 votes in favour and 3 abstentions from the United States, the United Kingdom and Russia. Speaking ahead of the vote, Malta, who proposed the resolution, said it offered hope in this dark hour, focusing on the plight of children, both Palestinian and those taken hostage by Hamas. The resolution adopted on Wednesday demands compliance with international law, as well as safe and unhindered humanitarian access for United Nations agencies and their partners.
In the UK this week, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak fired his Home Secretary and appointed former Prime Minister David Cameron as his Foreign Secretary. Ollie Barrett sent this report from London following the first meeting of the newly reshuffled cabinet.
This broader reshuffle, which has seen a new health secretary, a new environment secretary, a new home secretary as well after Suella Braverman was sacked, is designed by Rishi Sunak to be a reset ahead of the next general election. He wants the best possible team in place to get ready to fight that election. Some Conservatives feel that David Cameron's foreign policy wasn't very successful when he was Prime Minister, and they wonder whether he is the best man for the job as a result. But Rishi Sunak sees him as someone who can appeal to voters in the centre ground of British politics.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, wrapping up our coverage of the APEC summit from San Francisco, where there are some mixed results emerging from a week of diplomacy. It's seen President Biden and President Xi Jinping declaring that a new era of at least slightly warmer relations between the United States and China is at hand. And while APEC leaders made progress on issues including improved supply chains, the transition to clean energy and anti-corruption efforts, they failed to agree language on trade that will lie at the heart of the proposed Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Also, the conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine saw disagreements around the conference table. Vedant Patel is deputy spokesperson at the US State Department.
We have the ability to deal with multiple challenges and crises at the same time. We can ensure that we're helping flow humanitarian aid into Gaza. We're doing what we can to support our Israeli partners as they hold these terrorist groups accountable. We're also continuing to do everything we can to support our Ukrainian partners as they defend their territorial integrity and sovereignty. For a lack of a better word, we feel confident in our ability to walk and chew gum at the same time, and multilateral settings like this are a really unique opportunity to talk about these varying different issues with the respective member economies.
It is perhaps inevitable that a forum that includes the US, Russia and China was always going to be somewhat constrained in terms of outcomes. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And that was the Week in Review. There's more from us on X at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Do you sometimes feel that healthy eating can be a lot of work with very little reward? Well, no need to worry any longer. Here are the Onion's tips for healthy eating. First, identify your weaknesses, and then condition yourself to avoid problem foods by associating them with deceased relatives, unrequited loves, and traumatic events. Remember, alcohol is a source of empty calories, so be sure to keep your drinking under control. Unless you're really stressed out. Like if something happens at work, or if your cat gets hit by a car. If you find yourself suddenly craving a fatty food, let yourself enjoy the best of both worlds. Tape a slice of ham to your tongue and slowly absorb the taste throughout the day without swallowing. Stay motivated by paying yourself $1 every day until you meet your weight loss goals. At the end of 10 years' time, spend that cash on a cosmetic operation of your choice. There, now you're ready to begin your new healthy lifestyle.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
Hour number three of Free Talk Live. Officially underway. Three licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop. Yes. Something about an owl.
Yep. Mr. Owl.
There once was an owl who lived in an oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we all be more like that wise old bird?
Ooh.
Anyway, it's Free Talk Live. The telephone number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it is myself, the Reverend Captain Kick-Ass. Joining me,
Peakless Mountaineer and
Richie Rich.
We've been talking about a whole bunch of stuff. We talked about the kill switch in your vehicles.
Did we finish that?
We didn't, but we're going to move on.
All right.
We talked about Peakless and the pin of shame.
Just real quick.
We talked about tipping.
One quick question on that,
vacation.
because like you've looked at that article. So can they just like beep boop turn off your vehicle remotely?
It remains to be seen. Apparently,
the technology is there.
Yeah. Apparently,
Gotcha.
the what do you call it? The onus is on the manufacturers and the National Highway Transit, say NHS,
whatever,
National Highway
Transit Safety
whatever. Yeah, for them to, like, quote, figure it out, unquote. However, there's a
so
move
they will
underway.
be installing the machinery to make that possible. But don't worry. They promise that they will only use it for liberty and democracy.
So, again, you might want to listen to the interview with Gardner Goldsmith and Eric Peters.
Yeah,
Right?
Fridays, Free Talk Live.
The machinery is already there, generally, and has been for a long time.
That is sad and disturbing.
Like, unless you're driving a really old car, right?
Woohoo!
Like, fine, then you're probably okay. But this is the conspiracy.
Nothing can stop me but bad luck.
Yeah, there's like 4 things left to say in this article about this.
Well, there's the conspiracy behind Cash for Clunkers, which is why they crashed all those cars. Was to get them off the road so they can start forcing you into buying this new stuff.
The article continues, in an odd bit of uniformity, each of the fact-checkers said spokespeople for groups who support these systems, such as MAD, or support the system, such as MAD, which is Mothers Against Drunk Driving, told them they would never support giving law enforcement access to their vehicle systems. My personal favorite, however, was PolitiFact, who said, quote, "We found no mention in the bill of a kill switch."
Yep. Because it didn't say kill switch.
Right. The word kill.
We found a bill. We hit Control F. We put kill switch in there.
Right, nothing.
And we are journalists.
0 results.
Yes.
The idea that the absence of the words kill switch in the bill is evidence that a disabling mechanism doesn't actually exist in the legislation.
I mean, technically that is true.
Is nothing short
These
of
are
gaslighting.
the fact checkers.
Technically, it is evidence. It is tiny, insignificant, and weak evidence, but technically, that is evidence in that direction. It just happens to be overruled by a massive amount of evidence in the other direction.
Okay, so segue.
Which they were not checking.
They were not checking that, no.
Segue, since the government seems to be, well, effing people, because I can't say, the word I want to say on radio. Let's talk about somebody who...
I prefer to think of it as FCCing people.
Oh, nice. Let's talk about somebody
How would you
who...
pronounce that if it wasn't an acronym?
I can't tell you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can't say
Per
that.
the FCC, I cannot tell you how I would pronounce that.
Let's talk about somebody who made their living FCCing people on film. You may be familiar, if you watch porn, you may be familiar with ex-porn star Mia Khalifa.
Oh, that X in there is...
Ex-porn star Mia Khalifa is slammed,
quote unquote, no pun intended,
after repeating her bizarre claim that being in the army is worse than being on OnlyFans because it is selling your body to the government.
I agree with Mia Khalifa.
No lies detected here.
Right?
Like,
I'm suddenly interested in what Mia Khalifa has to say now.
Said no one ever.
I am sincerely curious, A, how she got to this, I mean, to me, painfully obvious, but quite accurate perspective, and B, if she has any other, like, basically reasonable perspectives on actual reality.
She has a couple of reasonable perspectives from my perspective, but let's find out more about the article, shall we? Former adult actress Mia Khalifa has been eviscerated for repeating a year-old claim that military service is worse than OnlyFans, as it is like selling your body to the government. Again, like, as a libertarian, I have more respect for sex workers than I do the military or the police.
100%. 100%.
Khalifa, who was born in 1993, said in an interview on U.S. chat show ZIWE, "Honestly, I think that selling your body, like if we're going by that definition, being in the army is worse than being on OnlyFans. You're selling your body to the government." While the original interview was aired last year, Khalifa, whose real name is Sarah Jo Chauman, reposted a clip of the interview in response to a post from comedian Marcela Arguello on Twitter on Veterans Day that read, "Who else remembers being against the Iraq war?" And people being like, "Oh, wow, so you don't support our troops?" And then having the most dumb conversation about being anti-American when you were just anti-killing innocent people. Anyway, this feels like that. I am anti-war, like astoundingly anti-war. I don't like in a world where government does not exist. Will there be violence? Yes.
Yes.
Will it be at the scale of the state? No.
Likely not. Yes.
No, they simply can't afford it.
It just, yeah.
There is only one entity that can afford to make that level of destruction. I mean, it just in dollars and cents, you cannot raise the revenue for the kind of destruction that a state entity can do in any other way.
Yep.
Well, okay.
And that is because the state entity alone has the backing of people. Like not only will people like actively fill out paperwork they know they can't actually fill out in order to give money to this entity, they will also never try to slow it down a little bit. They will never be slow in their service to that entity because of its evil.
Again, I would suggest on the dollars and cents, it will likely be possible because, again, ideas that we have promoted on this show, right, is absent the state, absent the government, absent the theft and coercion, we will become a more prosperous society, and a more prosperous society will have more disposable funds to get all those fun stuff. Whether we choose to spend it on that as a society.
A prosperous society also produces the technology to defend.
Sometimes those weapons are the same.
The article continues. Mia Khalifa's response to the online post has since garnered massive amounts of attention and criticism online. One Twitter user said, sorry, I hate saying X.
Agreed.
One Twitter user says the woman who's allowed to expose herself for cash based on the freedoms provided by our service members. Well, let's take that apart for a minute. Is freedom provided by service members?
No.
Why? How not? How is it not provided by service members?
Because the very first off, they're funded through the taxation, so they've already taken a portion or a fraction of your liberties.
So you are at that point already raping for virginity.
Consent has been violated,
right? And then they go out generally, as far as the United States military is concerned, they go out and piss off people in other countries, making it more likely that they will commit acts of terror here, like the 9/11 Commission report said when it referenced the concept of blowback. Right? You upset people, you get them angry enough, and then they want to commit acts of violence against you.
I wonder if blowback means something different to Mia Khalifa.
Maybe.
Anyway,
I mean the number of people that would push a button to kill me, with nothing more than the knowledge that I'm American,
right? Yeah,
is way higher than the number of people I could possibly upset to that degree working on my own.
Right, yeah.
Even if I devoted my life to doing nothing but that.
I don't know. You're on air like every week, man. So that number grows
every week. I've made like. We'll call it individual, I don't want to say enemies, but people who don't like me.
Adversaries.
Right? Adversaries or haters or whatever you want to call it, right? But that's on an individual basis, and you're absolutely right. Like, I could not individually as a person anger enough people in such a way that they're all going to get together and build a big thing of mass destruction and drop it in my general area, hoping that they will get me and all of my friends. Right? That's, unless, of course, you're talking about the federal government. Right. But outside of any state institution, I'm not going to be able as an individual to anger that many people in such a way. And they're not all going to get together and pool all their money for decades, if not hundreds of years, in an effort to build such a structure or such a weapon as to kill millions of people in one shot.
Yeah.
Just not going to happen.
Yeah. And the sad truth of the fact is that here I am spending my time and energy trying to fight against the global imperial war that America is waging. And I might end up dying in a nuclear blast because they are trying to get at the American empire.
One of the commenters said, just thank you for your service to anybody in the Army that's better than this. Those soldiers signed up to defend freedom.
No, they signed up for the money. Free college,
health care,
benefits.
They got a wife. They needed a place to stay. They couldn't, they had no real skills of any other sort. And the Army was like, oh, come on, we'll give you 3 hots and a cot and you can do our bidding for the bankers.
More meat for the grinder.
The comments come a month after she was originally slammed for mocking the 1,200 civilians killed during the Hamas surprise incursion. She said in a post to Twitter, can someone please tell the freedom fighters in Palestine to flip their phones and film horizontal? Highlighting her intelligence. She made light of the horror conflict, joking about a Zionist apartheid regime being brought down by guerrilla fighters in fake Gucci shirts. Khalifa also shared an image of terrorists riding in the back of a pickup truck, calling it a Renaissance painting. She was fired from her role as a content creator for Playboy's Centerfold platform, which she joined in February 2022, shortly after these comments. At any rate, I'm done giving her press. So she said these words, I detect no lies. I don't think she is an intelligent person, generally speaking. She's probably below average, in my opinion, based on the comments that I've seen her make. But, I don't know her.
She got that one right.
So I can't really make that claim.
I think it illustrates the point that even a below average intelligence person, if they are thinking clearly, can come to the truth, as she in fact has. Because when someone says they're defending your freedom, that is an axiom. Like they believe as an article of faith that our troops are defending our freedom. Like it is just a definition of what a troop is a defender of freedom. It does not matter if there is no freedom that they're defending. It does not matter if what they're doing is attacking, which is different from defense. Mm-hmm. No, it does not matter because it is in the same way that this wine, because it got blessed, is blood.
Right. What evidence is there that any military person or organization has defended my freedom?
Bradley Manning?
Any person?
Or Chelsea Manning? No.
I mean,
or organization. Like military person or organization. Has defended my freedom.
In their capacity as military?
Yes.
No, not one tiny bit.
There might be like one guy, right? Somehow, right?
I mean, he leaked the footage,
but
was persecuted for it.
A military person can in fact defend your freedom, but when they're doing so, it is not in their capacity of being a military person.
Right.
Bradley at the time, Manning's actions were not the actions of a military person.
Right. In fact, they were condemned by the military and saw it, the whole trial and all that crap ensued.
And it was only when he broke and went against his role as a military person that he finally defended my freedom.
All right.
And thank God he did.
Let's go to some of your calls and thoughts. Let's go to Major Payne calling from Michigan. Major, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys. Yeah, earlier you were talking about various states and their, the elections to legalize pot and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember here when they did it in Michigan, the Democrats were running a very sketchy as to whether or not she would have been elected. Our second female governor, I think it was.
Okay.
And they put the pot bill on the same, legalizing pot on the same election cycle, thereby bringing out a whole lot of the younger crowd.
Right.
Here,
That'll do it.
this last year, when they were trying to push through in a very red state, the basically unlimited abortions thing to the Ohio Constitution, they put the pot bill on that election, thereby increasing their voter turnout. So
Well, I'd actually say that this is the case where those voters are on the right side. Look, in both of those cases, they are defending your right to make medical decisions.
Well, in both cases, one was just to get the governor elected.
No, I'm saying like in the people who are trying to legalize pot.
Yep.
And the people which are the same people who are trying to legalize abortion. In both cases, they are attempting to defend your medical freedom.
Okay.
Well, this abortion bill went way beyond just submitting to the woman's right to have an abortion. It went to, the teenager's right to do whatever the hell they wanted without parental consent. And, don't ask, don't tell. So they get every nickel they can out of whatever lemon they're squeezing.
If there wasn't so much restrictions on being a teenager, they ought to be liberated as well.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Well, they don't make wise decisions.
Well, nor do adults, man. I mean, come on. Like, I'm 51 years old, and Major, I know you're a bit older than me, but, like, my observation of people over the age of 18, my opinion of whether or not they make better decisions hasn't really changed. I just find that people over the age of 18 are just older versions of their 18-year-old selves who also make poor decisions.
Is there a cute chick around? Because I'm about to do something stupid.
Right.
Well, that all depends if they had any kind of a foundation at all to,
I think that's biology, man.
I mean, to that extent,
well,
I also probably haven't changed much from my 18-year-old self in, the decisions that I make on a daily basis, right? I've gotten wiser over time. I might make some better financial decisions or that kind of thing, or employment decisions, or, be smart enough to go, like, get another skill if I have to and adapt that way. But, like, my sense of humor is the same, right? If I go out drinking, I probably have the same kind of time I did when I was in my 20s or whatever. Like, I largely haven't changed that much.
I think the only fundamental difference is less thoughts make it to mouth as you get older.
And here's the thing.
Fact.
Like, what we should be doing as a society is focusing on making people capable human beings who can make decisions by the time they become sexually viable and have their decisions really, really matter for the future of all humanity, instead of stunting their mental and emotional growth for their entire existence so that we can make them adolescent until they're 25.
Well, okay.
And then we won't give them the right to make these decisions because we've made sure that they're not able to make good ones.
The challenge you might face, and I think this is Major's point, is they become sexually viable far sooner than the brain matures.
Major?
Yeah, well, that was part of it. But, I mean, what Peakless was just going off on goes right back to what I said just a minute ago. They have to have a base. You have to have a foundation. You have to have somebody that gave a damn enough about you to teach you things as you were a pup coming up.
Okay, and that's not the state nor the state school system.
Your personality's not going to change. Like Captain was talking about, he's basically the same cat he was, 40 years ago or whatever, and I'm basically the same cat I was 50 years ago.
I mean, I move slower.
But my life experience has taught me a hell of a lot. And a lot of people just spend their life in a foxhole and don't even realize, what's going over their head.
Sure.
And that's right back to, if you weren't taught how to play the game, you can't catch the ball.
Maybe.
Honestly, I am not worried about some 15-year-old that decides that she wants an abortion. Like, now I get it. If you believe that that's murder, then let's deal with it like murder. Like, one or the other. Either it's a human being or it's not. If it's not a human being, then it's a part of that person's body, and they own their body. If it is a human being, then this is murder, and we need to start changing our laws to reflect that these are human beings.
That's the
problem. I
problem.
don't think you'll like the outcome, but it's a pretty obvious point to go, look, has it breathed on its own?
That's your definition of when life starts. You've mentioned it a number of times on the show.
Right.
I'm not going to argue.
And it is the one time that a human first mixes their labor with nature. Now, if you want to point out another time where they mix their labor with nature, or B, give me a better version of property rights than mixing your labor with nature, I'm all ears.
I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is people don't agree with that definition. And the fundamental difference between those that think it's murder and those that think it's not is why there's an argument in the first place. That's irreconcilable.
Which means we should have one place where we consider it murder and another place that is not that place where we don't consider it murder.
That's why you're having different laws in different states.
Everybody just needs to butt out of everybody else's business.
Agree.
If somebody, hang on, Major, hang on. If somebody is pregnant and decides to have an abortion, it's up to them, and
unless it's murder,
and their spouse or whatever to determine what their belief is.
Unless it's murder, because you want to take murderers off the street.
603-283-6160 is the phone number if you'd like to join us. Do you believe abortion is murder? Oh boy. Here we go. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. Oh, and thanks for the call, Major.
The dangerous winter storm Rocky is expected to pummel the Midwest throughout the day, with meteorologists predicting the blizzard will hit Kevin Hodges of Joliet, Illinois, the hardest, given the way his year's been going.
Yeah, we're stocking up on everything. I think school's going to be canceled. We're just glad we're not Kevin right now.
Joining us now is Jordan Blake in Chicago. Hello, Jordan. Just how crippling will this storm be for Kevin?
Well, we've already seen a lot of damage. Motorists in Kansas trapped in their cars on the freeway. That's nothing compared to the emotional damage Hodges can expect. Having to deal with a sick cat, frustrating new hours at work, and a confusing breakup all in the past 6 months.
You know, we're getting reports that he recently loaned $600 to a friend who has no intention of paying him back and slammed his finger in a car door last month. Does the National Weather Service have any advice for Kevin today?
Not much he can do. The sky is really vulnerable right now. Authorities are recommending that he just stay indoors and think about his mistakes.
That sounds like good advice. You know, he looks like a real sad piece of shit. Stay warm out there, Jordan.
This is the Onion News Network.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, the leaders of the US and China held their first face-to-face meeting in a year. Presidents Joe Biden and Xi Jinping agreed to resume military-to-military communications and made joint commitments on fentanyl and climate change. They met on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Cooperation Summit in San Francisco, from where Ira Spitzer sent this report.
U.S. President Biden called the talks with China's president productive and praised the agreement to resume military-to-military communications, as well as a commitment from China to help crack down on Chinese firms involved in producing the precursors to the powerful synthetic opioid fentanyl. The two leaders also discussed areas of disagreement, including Taiwan, where Biden said the U.S. will adhere to the One China policy, but that he expects Beijing not to interfere in Taiwan's upcoming elections.
This week, the US averted a government shutdown. It ended with President Joe Biden's signature on the stopgap spending bill less than a day before the Friday midnight deadline, and will fund 4 federal agencies until January the 19th and the remaining until February the 2nd, at which point new funding will be needed to be agreed on to again prevent a government shutdown. This week, Israeli soldiers entered Gaza's main hospital, Al-Shifa, to follow up on claims, backed by the White House, that Hamas had a headquarters under the building. Forces say they found a tunnel shaft and a large weapons cache. It came as the United Nations Security Council passed its first resolution on the conflict after 4 previous drafts failed. FSN's Sally Patterson sent this report from UN headquarters in New York.
12 votes in favour and 3 abstentions from the United States, the United Kingdom and Russia. Speaking ahead of the vote, Malta, who proposed the resolution, said it offered hope in this dark hour. The resolution adopted on Wednesday demands compliance with international law, as well as safe and unhindered humanitarian access for United Nations agencies and their partners.
In the UK this week, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak fired his Home Secretary and appointed former Prime Minister David Cameron as his Foreign Secretary. Ollie Barrett sent this report from London following the first meeting of the newly reshuffled cabinet.
This broader reshuffle, which has seen a new Health Secretary, a new Environment Secretary, a new Home Secretary as well after Suella Braverman was sacked, is designed by Rishi Sunak to be a reset ahead of the next general election. He wants the best possible team in place to get ready to fight that election. Some Conservatives feel that David Cameron's foreign policy wasn't very successful when he was Prime Minister, and they wonder whether he is the best man for the job.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to Free Talk Live, the Saturday night edition. We're here every Saturday from 7 to 10 p.m. to talk about all sorts of things, plus whatever's on your mind. If you don't know what our show is, you can visit freetalklive.com to find out more. Those of you who've been listening for some time may be aware that the founder of this show, as well as one other first chair host, are both in prison for the dastardly crime of selling Bitcoin to willing customers voluntarily.
Treating adults like adults.
Who had also
provided... Throw a book at them.
Who had also provided identification and basically held up a photo or held up a sign in front of them that says, yes, I agree to buy this Bitcoin at this price from this person for this purpose at this time. Like, photo visual consent was gotten. And yet the Ian Freeman is serving like 8 years. Yeah. Aria serving 18 months. Aria only, she did a plea deal. She only pled guilty to, she's like, yeah, I sold Bitcoin. No, I didn't get a government license. And they're like, guilty for not getting the government license to do so, whereas Ian decided to take it to a jury trial. And despite the state themselves saying things like, there are no victims here, etc. and so on.
So there's a question.
The folks there convicted him anyway.
Like, do we need New Hampshire to, like, pass a law that just says everyone has a license? Because there exists no license in this state.
Right.
So they had every license that they could have. But the federal government said that since you don't have the state's license to do this...
Did they say they don't have the state's license to do it?
The federal license.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's different.
Oh, I thought it was because because the state didn't have one, then you have to get the federal one.
Well, because the government, the federal government is claiming that money transmission equals Bitcoin exchange, which is not true.
And there's a money transmitter license.
There's a money transmitter license that you must get if you're like a bank or something. You want to do wire transfers. You want to do some Western Union action.
I think Derek J also had that license.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right, like they knocked on his door, but he didn't get arrested because he was in compliance at the time.
So first of all, money transmitting is a whole thing where like money moves from a location to another, right? It's like there are laws written for like people carrying like a suitcase full of cash, right? If the authorities, as you're going through customs or whatever, discover that you have a suitcase full of cash, they're going to confiscate it and say that you are guilty of, carrying money across a border or something like that, unlicensed, right? There are laws like that. So essentially what happened, in my opinion, is they've used a whole bunch of laws that had nothing to do with this new technology known as cryptocurrency, and are shoehorning these laws into people who have dealt in cryptocurrency. The attack, if you will, on cryptocurrency continues. It's not just the Crypto 6. You can find more at thecrypto6.com. It is other people as well who have been targeted by the authorities and the banksters and the governments for transacting freely with other individuals. So that being said, Both Ian and Arya are currently behind bars. They've been kidnapped by tyrants. They're behind bars. We want you to write letters to them. This whole lead-in is about, hey, they're in jail. They need some support. Write some letters. I'm going to post to our social media. That's Twitter, it's Mastodon, it's a couple other places. If you're on our social media, you already know where they're at. I'm going to post links to the instructions for you to write to them. Ian is currently in Merrimack County Jail. He will be there until maybe even 2 hearings from now. He's got 1 hearing that's supposed to determine restitution. Not sure how you can pay restitution to no victims, but we're going to find that out. And then Arya, of course, is in FMC Devens, and she's been there for 6 months. I don't remember when she went in.
Was it April?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little over 6 months.
I think so. So at any rate, but she's still in. We're hoping she gets out maybe before PorkFest. They have what they call Good Time. It's also known as, what is it? Time off for
good behavior.
Good behavior. Yeah, that's what it's formerly known as. They call it Good Time, like to make it sound better somehow. Yeah, you're in jail. Good time, right? Yeah,
Good times.
So I'm just
being able to afford potato chips.
I'm just going to post those links to our social media. You can go to ariademezzo.com and find the same information. You can also go to freekeen.com to find the information on how to write to Ian. But I'm going to make it easy for you. I'll just post it on our social media, so watch out for that. And thank you to those folks who have written. Thank you to everybody who has reported on the Crypto 6. Thank you to the documentary filmmakers that have been documenting all of the things surrounding the Crypto 6. We look forward to those films coming out, and we'll keep you updated as we know more about those. But please do write to both Arya and Ian. All right, moving right along. Let's go to David in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, right. What would Arya want to hear from me?
You know, it beats hearing from no one at all.
You know what? I tell
Send
you
her
what.
pictures and Speedos.
Yeah, I tell you what. If you did write her, I guarantee you that when she opened it up, it was like, David in New Mexico, there'd be a big smile on her face. Regardless as to what you, like, even if you were the most insulting thing, she'd be like, I can't believe David in New Mexico wrote me.
She'd probably remember it so much she'd talk about you on air when she came back without you having to call in.
All right. Maybe I'll send a postcard.
She might even do your catchphrase, M. Monica Zamora.
John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Exactly. All right. We're on it, man. Speedo Light. Not Speedo. Not
the
Speedo
Light. Wait, they're making Speedos with lights on them now?
No. Speedo was too much material. It's Speedo Light.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
It's a mesh.
Speedo Light is a tong.
It's
a tong,
translucent.
Yeah, it's made out of it's 100% cotton white.
Wait, that's going in the show notes.
100% white cotton. What about the show notes?
David and his translucent Speedo.
The Wet Speedo contest brought to you by Free Talk Live.
Speedo Light. Speedo Light. It's like a tong, a banana hammock.
Were you calling about something, David, or are we just joking around?
Speed of light.
I was. You just give. What did you say?
Speed of light.
Speed of light. No, speed. Yeah, that can wait, man. That can wait. There's something more important.
Oh,
you guys are discriminating. You got to stop discriminating.
Discriminating
against who?
Yeah.
You mean discriminating?
No. I've been
Don't discriminate against him.
Mike Tyson, he say discriminating.
Oh, okay.
He says a lot of things that are the wrong way.
It's his
charm. But he's a good guy. And so
he's become a good guy.
He's become a good guy.
Hey, everyone has a plan until he punches them in the face.
Yeah, man, it's the most.
You ever been punched in the face before?
Is that Mike Tyson?
It is.
What was Robin Givens' plan?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know what all the truth is. I don't know the truth, man. I don't know the truth, so I can't go there, man.
So who are we discriminating against?
You guys, well, Indian givers, Indians.
Oh, okay.
Actually, there's a side note. Indians like the term Indians because it's the root word of ingenuity.
Okay.
Shows their skill.
I always thought that would be a good designation between Indians and Indians.
It would be.
There you go. Engines.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Then I don't know if it's disrespectful or not, but then you know they're not the doot Indians.
every, as we're taught to say Native American,
Yeah.
every single one of them that I've known to use a word to describe their people, they call themselves Indians.
How very white-centric of them.
I had a conversation on that very topic with, you remember, was it 1973 Wounded Knee? You know that thing? You know thing?
Yeah, that was a thing. That was a hell of a
Wounded
thing.
Knee standoff in 1973. You know about that?
Mm-hmm.
What about it, David?
It was yeah. Okay. Well, I know a guy who was there. He was a teenager, and he was there, and his name was Mike, and I don't remember his last name, but he was he's FBI. He was FBI, not the FBI that they were fighting against. He's the other FBI, the full-blooded Indian. He's half California Indian and half Cheyenne, and he said, I asked him that very question. I asked him about how did this thing go down? You want to be Indians? You want to be Native Americans? He says, well, you called us Indians, and we decided we wanted to be not Indians because we weren't Indians. We want to be Native Americans, and then you know what? We changed our mind, and we just decided, okay, we'll be Indians. So that's how that went down.
Probably because it was too difficult to explain to them that they ought to be called by their original tribe name, like the Cheyenne.
Right. Because white men dumb.
Right.
And so that's how that went down. And we also talked about Redskins too, but I'll save that for later. So Indian Giver, it's my understanding. Oh, and first, before I get started, Indian Giver, you discriminated because you said Indian Giver and you said gypped, but you didn't say Jude. You discriminated. You didn't include them.
Well, we weren't really negotiating though, so that term wouldn't have come up.
No. That one is actually in some contexts it is identical to gypped. Now that is the difference. So, like, I have heard
there's a Family Guy.
I have heard Jude him down.
Right, that's the
to
common
mean
phrase.
Specifically the haggling.
Yes.
Now, occasionally,
but gypped is when you bought a thing and it turns out that it's totally not
right.
worth what you paid
So
for it.
gypped usually doesn't mean haggled down.
Means defrauded.
I have occasionally heard gypped to mean that, but it's very rare. Whereas Jude can mean either of those.
Jude sounds positive in that connotation.
There is no positive way of saying Jew. Like,
really?
It is apparently just always offensive.
Okay.
Like, you can say Jewish people.
I got it. But if I say, like, I Jewed him down to 500, I'm getting a good deal. That seems like a good thing.
It sounds positive, but it is hateful.
Okay.
What about a wandering Jew? Is that
you mean like Kane from Kung Fu?
Was he a Jew? Came from Kung Fu. That was David Carradine. He wasn't Jewish, was he?
Well, he did wander the earth, though.
For 40 episodes.
Wandering Jew, the plant. Aren't you a gardener? Wandering Jew is a plant. Is that
I've never heard of that
incorrect?
Yep, never heard of that plant.
All right. David, just so our listeners know, the Wounded Knee occupation of 1973, also known as the Second Wounded Knee. There was another Wounded Knee in 1890.
I'm pretty sure he said 73.
Yes, but the one in 73 is the Second Wounded Knee. Was
them both.
200 Ogallala Lakota Sioux and followers of the American Indian movement seized and occupied the town of Wounded Knee on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. The protest followed the failure of an effort of the Ogallala Sioux to use impeachment to remove the tribal president, whom they accused of corruption and abuse of opponents. They occupied the town for 71 days while the United States Marshal Service, FBI agents, and other law enforcement agencies cordoned off the area.
Seems like infighting to me.
The activists chose the site of the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre for its symbolic value. So there you go.
So I was thinking of the 1890 one.
Oh, he said 73.
Yeah,
David
specifically mentioned the 1973, so that's the one I brought up. It is known as the Second Wounded Knee. The first one was even more heinous, really, in my opinion. But anyway.
Yeah, well, for sure it was. And another, I'll let you, here's another one. So the dude, Mike, that it was at the 1973 standoff at Wounded Knee, they killed, what did they kill, one or two FBI agents? I don't remember, one or two.
Not enough.
I remember. Anyway, not enough. Okay.
I mean, it's a start.
But, right. So Leonard Peltier, you know him, right?
Yep.
Okay. Leonard did not do it. But Leonard has told his people that he will take the rap. He'll do the time so that the people who did kill those FBI agents can stay out of prison.
Well, good on him.
Wait.
Yeah, well, that's mighty white of him, man.
You can't do somebody else's time.
Well, if you admit to it,
and if you're Leonard Peltier, you can.
Well,
yeah, no. He got convicted of it, and instead of turning in, he did not do it. This comes from the people that were there. Leonard did not do it, but Leonard is doing the time so that the people who did do it don't have to do the time.
I would do a month for Ian Freeman if more people would do a month for Ian Freeman.
I'd do a month for him.
All right.
Yeah.
I can do a month stand in my head, man.
Hell yeah.
Would you do it for Ian Freeman, though?
What?
Would you do it for Ian Freeman, though?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd do it. I'd do a month. I could do that standing on my head if it saves him 8 years in conjunction with
I
other
would only
people.
do it standing on my head if
Wouldn't that be
that
cool if we
1
could
month.
if we could just network all of his time and like everyone ends up doing like 1/100th of a second. But we got like 1 billion people to do it. So.
If there were that many people that showed up to the trial,
fantastic.
right? But the numbers of people that showed up to the trial, if everyone took a month, right? Ian would do like a month,
right?
Yeah.
So
and he'd also just be out because he did 69 days originally. So
there you go.
That would be the whole thing.
He said 69. Yeah,
that was attorney offer that.
Huh?
I was suggesting that we have his attorney offer that up.
There you go. So something just occurred to me. The FBI not only raids your house, your place of business, but they listen to the show. So I just gave the FBI what they probably already know, that a dude I know and had, it's not hearsay, because I had first one-to-one communication, face-to-face,
first-hand knowledge.
real time.
Well, no, he doesn't have first-hand knowledge because he wasn't at Wounded Knee. It's still hearsay.
That's true.
Well, I have first-hand knowledge of my conversation with Mike.
Okay.
And Mike was there, and I don't doubt that Mike was there. And if the FBI doesn't know it already, which I'm sure they already do, that Leonard Peltier didn't actually do the crime, but he is doing the time. But like I said, I'm sure they know that already.
If you were testifying, that would be hearsay. If Mike testified, that wouldn't.
If Mike wants to call, the phone number is 603-283-6160.
You could testify to your conversation with Mike, but that doesn't. You're not really testifying to the account of the events.
No, I'm testifying to my conversation.
Yeah, but that's worthless.
Yeah.
That's worthless in court.
No, because that would then be enough to have Mike come in and testify.
Yeah, but his testimony is the one that carries the weight.
Again, so now we're talking secondhand knowledge. So if you talk to Mike, have him give us a call, David. Thank you for the call tonight. We appreciate you. So we don't have enough time to get into it, but we'll try. This from thehighwire.com. We talked about the FCC a little earlier today.
FCC, yeah, we did.
They can get the FCC out of here as far as I'm concerned.
They can.
They can go FCC themselves. That's 100%. A good substitute for the F word.
It really is.
I don't know what the FCC you're talking about.
And frankly,
I just hope you guys keep it up.
If anyone deserves to have their name turned into a curse word,
it's the FCC.
It's the FCCing FCC.
So just when you thought it was bad, here's the headline. The FCC just voted to take control of the internet.
Good luck.
They don't need luck. No. They have state power.
Yeah, they have guns and people of false belief who think that government is good.
I got it, but okay, they take over the internet. There's still wires connecting computers together and Internet 2.0.
Well,
yeah, but you need an internet service provider to do that.
Kind of.
Oh, really? Can you operate the internet without an internet service provider?
I can plug my computer into Captain's computer, and we've got a network.
I mean,
mesh networks exist.
But you do not have the internet.
I got it.
Mesh networks exist. A parallel internet can be built. And
it
like
can
probably
come
already
into
has.
existence.
Probably already has been. There's probably all sorts of like
There's
underground mesh networks that exist already, and it just takes like a bridge from some other community into this community.
I'm sure there's people still having LAN
equivalent
parties.
of the internet.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Not to be the equivalent of the internet. That's insane.
Look, the internet is like a network of websites. Those websites exist on a computer somewhere.
Right.
It can exist on a server in IBM's building, or it can exist on Captain's laptop.
Right.
So
Yeah, networks exist.
Yeah.
The dominant network is what it is.
I
mean, in the same way as, like, you can make your own Bitcoin. It's real easy to do, but it will not be Bitcoin.
Do you know how you can copy and paste the code for Bitcoin and then create your own?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that with the internet. All the code is out there. It exists.
Right.
You're not
And
going
it
to do
will
it.
not
You're not
be
going to do it in one shot.
the internet.
You're not going to do it in one shot, but certainly a parallel.
It will be internet cache.
A parallel, yeah, right. A parallel version of the internet can be built and will be built in the event that something like the FCC or some other tyrannical government organization tries to, put it down or take control or whatever.
Right,
It'll
right.
be internet
If
TV.
if
Peakless's vision.
Yeah, if they absolutely take it down, that is definitely the case. And that's why they're doing this. They don't want to take it down. They don't want it to be replaced with a mesh network that is end-to-end encrypted. That would be their bane. What they want to do is leave it in existence and control it.
All right, let me get this paragraph out and then we can talk. The FCC voted today on a plan that gives the federal government full control over the internet. The plan passed by a 3-2 margin. A press release posted immediately after the meeting stated, in part, under the new rules, the Commission can investigate possible instances of discrimination of broadband access, work with companies to solve problems, facilitate mediation, and, when necessary, penalize companies for violating the rules.
How do the other countries feel about this?
The FCC will review consumer complaints of digital discrimination of access through an improved consumer complaint portal, and staff will meet monthly to assess trends in complaint patterns. Finally, the Commission adopted model policies and the best practices that will support states, local, and tribal governments in their efforts to combat digital discrimination.
The internet exists outside of America.
Yeah, this plan is marketed as though it will prevent digital discrimination and a way to ensure equal access broadband to internet in the United States. While equal access is a component of liberty and freedom, this plan gives sweeping access and regulatory control over all aspects of the internet business. According to the plan document, the FCC would have the power to regulate the following aspects as it relates to each internet service provider: network infrastructure deployment, network reliability, network upgrades, network maintenance, customer premise equipment, installation, speeds, capacities, latency, data caps, throttling, pricing, promotional rates, imposition of late fees, opportunity for equipment rental, installation time, contractual renewal terms, service termination terms, use of consumer credit and account history, mandatory arbitration clauses, pricing, deposits, discounts, customer service, language options, credit checks, marketing and advertising, contract renewal, upgrades, account termination, transfers to another covered entity, and service suspension. That's all. That's all they're going to take control of.
Oh, so just one or two.
Just a small list.
Yeah.
Again, the internet exists outside of America, so how are they going to do any of the things they want to do if you just accessing sites or using a VPN?
So that's a good question.
It is.
I can only answer with this.
Like Comcast has no idea what websites I go to because I immediately connect to a VPN.
The only answer I can give you is this. Typically, when one version of government does a thing and we'll call it succeeds, like at their thing that they want to do.
Sure.
Other government entities go, oh, we got to do that too. And then they do.
Yep.
That's my answer.
Now, as far as how are they going to regulate it throughout the world? I don't know. Seems to me that the United States federal government has done an amazing job of expanding its reach in absolutely every way.
They'll form a new...
I got it.
No. They'll form a new entity, a global entity, through the United Nations or some crap like that, called WIGS, the World Internet Governance Society, or something like that.
I have a complaint for the FCC about a website in Cameroon.
Yep.
What are they going to do? Are they, as a consumer complaint?
They're going to determine whether or not the...
Oh, no. Nothing in here said that they're going to act on consumer complaints.
No, they said they can set up a website.
It
right?
says that they are going to regulate all of these things and otherwise
How are they going to do
punish
that?
people
How are they going to do
if
that?
they do things that they don't like.
How are they going to do that to
they're
the
not
provider
going
in
to,
Cameroon?
They're not going to respond
they...
to your complaint about a website
How
in
are they
Cameroon.
going to regulate anything that exists on the internet in Cameroon?
The same way that they regulated the Australian citizen of Assange.
With the threat and use of violence.
They're going to go pick up the internet service provider in Cameroon because he violated some term of service.
If they feel like it, yeah.
All right.
Governments only have one thing that they do, and that is the use and threat of violence. That is how they will.
But they usually
Do you think Cameroon wants to risk their relationship with the United States by keeping that guy?
We are
not going to go everywhere.
We are out of time. Thank you, Richie Rich. Thank you, Peakless Mountaineer. Thank you to all our listeners and our callers. We appreciate you. If you missed any part of tonight's program, please find the archives over at freetalklive.com. Thanks and peace.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome.